चल गया सर।
चल गया।
I welcome on behalf of Voice of CA on this GST course session 1, क्योंकि कल हमारे बहुत से पार्टिसिपेंट ड्यू टू टेक्निकल ग्लिच ऑफ सिस्को ज्वाइन नहीं कर पाए, इस वजह से हमने दूसरा कोर्स भी लॉन्च कर दिया जीएसटी सेशन 2। दैट्स वाई इसका नेम हमने रख दिया जीएसटी सेशन 1। आई ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ वॉइस ऑफ सीए वेलकम ऑल द पैनलिस्ट, विजय गुप्ता जी जो हमारी आज की फैकल्टी, अशोक बत्रा जी, देन गौरव गुप्ता जी, नब्या मल्होत्रा जी, पीयूष बांसल जी। बाकी मैं एक सीए के नाम से कोई आ रहे हैं संजय जी द्वारा, काइंडली इनको चेक कर लें, वो काइंडली अपनी वीडियो एक बार ऑन कर लें सीए के नाम से कि किसने लॉगिन किया है जी, अदरवाइज हमें हटाना पड़ेगा सर यहां से। देन सुशांत बसरा जी, शेफी मिगलानी, देवेंद्र भारद्वाज जी, नीलकांत जी, और दो नाम मेरे को नीचे नजर नहीं आ रहे, शायद सोनिया और एक नाम नजर नहीं आ रहा, संचिता। all the attendees, Sanchita, all the attendees, I welcome you for the overwhelming response। कल थोड़ी बहुत टेक्निकल ग्लिच ड्यू टू मेरे ख्याल में गिरीश जी भी मोबाइल से लॉगिन कर रहे थे, इस वजह से उनके कारण वो वीडियो हमारी बीच में कहीं फंस गई थी, तो इस वजह से दिक्कत आई थी, और उस वजह से हमारा जो इनॉग्रल सेशन था 2-4 मिनट का वो भी रह गया। तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आई विल इनवाइट एंड रिक्वेस्ट फाउंडर ऑफ द वॉइस ऑफ सीए संजय अग्रवाल जी कि वो कल वेलकम नहीं कर पाए, आज काइंडली वेलकम करें पहले।
थैंक यू अश्वनी जी, और the privilege of welcoming Batra ji, which was missed out by us, and as I seek the apology on behalf of the attendees, those who could not log in yesterday. Let me tell you that we have discussed, and today at 12:30 even we have mock tested the YouTube channel. Those who are not here, they may log in through YouTube also, and in YouTube they should write their name, their email address, and the membership number or any number which they have given at the time of the registration. I also welcome Ashwani ji, Piyush ji, Jalandhar chairman, and lot of other panelists, and I am thankful to the Shivaji College Commerce Department for giving the association of giving this certificate. Now today is the second day, as already announced by our Ashwani ji that the second series is also being announced, and as such, even if you are not in a position to log in because of any other reason, so we will see to it that every effort is made for making the YouTube connection as well as Cisco seamless. But as you understand that technology is something which is now these days is changing every day. I also welcome Navya Malhotra ji, Vijay Gupta ji, and all other panelists, those who are giving their support in every aspect. Gaurav Gupta ji, Shali ji, and also I say that without the effort of our moderators and panelists and also our Hanuman Ashwani ji, this program is not in a position to be conducted. And as such, not taking much of the time, I will request Ashwani ji to formally start the program and make the introduction, etc. And I would like to request that I have to go in a seminar at 4 o'clock, which was fixed 2 months earlier, and as such I was not in a position to cancel it. So I will be missing my son Rishabh C.A. Agarwal. He is in the control room and handling every technological issue. With this, once again, I apologize for the yesterday glitches which were there, and please enjoy the session. You are live on YouTube also. Thank you very much.
थैंक यू संजय जी। और दूसरा जो हमारे वॉइस ऑफ सीए के ये तो हमारा जीएसटी के रिलेटेड इनिशिएटिव था। इसके अलावा भी बहुत से इनिशिएटिव वॉइस ऑफ सीए ने प्रोफेशनल डेवलपमेंट के लिए लिए हैं। गिरीश ऊर्जा जी का बहुत ही बढ़िया प्रोग्राम जो मेरे ख्याल में नॉर्दर्न इंडिया में किसी भी जो मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग के हिसाब से जल्दी जल्दी किसी ब्रांच में हो, जहां किसी प्राइवेट प्लेटफॉर्म पे हो, जहां किसी एसोसिएशन के प्लेटफॉर्म पे हो, वो नहीं हुआ है। वो टॉपिक है एओपी। और गिरीश जी से मेरी बात हो रही थी, हम एओपी को बड़ा इजी समझते हैं। एओपी 7 काइंड्स ऑफ एओपीज है। हाउ वी कैन प्लान, मेक प्लानिंग थ्रू एओपी, उसके ऊपर वॉइस ऑफ सीए का फ्राइडे को सेशन है। तो वो काइंडली जितने भी यहाँ पे अटेंड कर रहे हैं वो नोट कर लें। मैं कंट्रोल रूम को रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि वो उसका लिंक भी शेयर कर देंगे यहाँ पे, ताकि उस पर वो रजिस्ट्रेशन करवा सकें, ताकि हमें इन एडवांस पता हो कि जो मेंबर अटेंड कर रहे हैं वो हमारी विद इन कैपेसिटी है 1000 की। ऑल्दो यूट्यूब पे भी अवेलेबल रहेगा। और इसके अलावा जीएसटी सेशन 2 भी हमने अनाउंस किया हुआ है, उसका भी लिंक आपको मिल जाएगा। अदरवाइज मैं कंट्रोल रूम से और संजय जी से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि वॉइस ऑफ सीए की वेबसाइट पे इन दोनों के लिंक भी अवेलेबल करवा दें। वो वॉइस ऑफ सीए की वेबसाइट का लिंक काइंडली हम इसको चैट बॉक्स में शेयर कर दें, तो मेंबर वहां पे भी जाके एक्टिविटीज जो फोर्थकमिंग एक्टिविटीज हैं वॉइस ऑफ सीए की वो देख सकते हैं। अविनाश जी भी आ गए हैं, तो मैं अभी हैंड ओवर करने जा रहा हूं। मॉडरेटर जो आज के हमारे 2 मॉडरेटर्स हैं, विजय गुप्ता जी और नव्या मल्होत्रा जी। मैं विजय गुप्ता जी को रिक्वेस्ट कर रहा हूं कि
अश्वनी जी 1 मिनट में और कहना चाहूंगा, हमने एसएमएस भेजा हुआ है सभी मेंबर्स को, उसमें एक लिंक रहेगा। अगर वो लिंक को आप क्लिक करेंगे तो वॉइस ऑफ सीए के जितने भी प्रोग्राम हैं जो कि फ्यूचर में आएंगे वो सब वहां पे लिंक प्रोवाइड होगा। आप अपना एसएमएस खोल के भी देख लीजिएगा, पिछले दिनों में भी आएगा और टाइम टू टाइम हम देते रहेंगे। वॉइस ऑफ सीए की मेल पे हम सब प्रोग्राम्स को भी एक फोर्थकमिंग देते हैं। और अगर आपको किसी वजह से नहीं मिल रही हो तो आप voiceofca@gmail.com पे अपनी मेंबरशिप नंबर वगैरह देके दे सकते हैं। जो मेंबर नहीं है हमारे सीए प्रोफेशन के, वो voiceofca.in हमारी वेबसाइट पे जाके बगैर किसी रजिस्ट्रेशन के न्यूज और प्रोफेशनल इंटरेस्ट में हमारे सभी एकेडमिक कंटेंट और प्रोग्राम के कंटेंट्स को वेरीफाई कर सकते हैं। और हमारी ये जो पीपीटीज, हमारे जो स्टार्स हैं, हमारे प्रोफेशनल जो ये प्रोग्राम प्रेजेंट करेंगे, उन सभी प्रोग्राम जो पीपीटीज हैं उनको हम टाइम टू टाइम वॉइस ऑफ सीए पे भी देंगे। और हमारे यूट्यूब के चैनल पे जब ये 2-3 दिन में हम मिल जाएगी तो हम वहां लिंक भी देंगे। मैं एक बार फिर रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि यूट्यूब चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करके ऑल नोटिफिकेशन पे आप लोग क्लिक करें, सो दैट हमारा जो है यूट्यूब चैनल भी चलता रहे। और मैं आपको आज एक जो गुरु जी हमारा सेशन लेंगे उस पे एक कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव नोट भी थ्रू मेल और ग्रुप्स भेजूंगा कि गुरु जी कितना टॉपिक एसोसिएशन या बीओआई में कवर करेंगे, जैसा कि अश्वनी जी ने बताया है। हमारे और जो सेशन है जो कि सैटरडे को है, जिसमें कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट है और वो सब चीजें, मैं उनके बारे में ज्यादा टाइम नहीं लेना चाहता हूं, वो सब आपको फोर्थ कमिंग उसके अंदर आ जाएंगे। बाकी किसी प्रकार की आपको कोई भी प्रॉब्लम हो, आप voiceofca@gmail.com पे किसी भी समय मेल कर सकते हैं। इट्स एक्सेसिबल टू मी 24/7। विद दिस प्लीज स्टार्ट द सेमिनार।
हाँ जी, विजय गुप्ता जी। और दूसरा मैं वेलकम करता हूं हमारे डॉक्टर राजिंदर सिंह जी, जो कॉलेज की तरफ से हैं, वो भी ज्वाइन कर चुके हैं। और हो सकता है किसी का नाम छूट गया हो। वेलकम टू ऑल दी पार्टिसिपेंट्स एज वेल एज पैनलिस्ट्स एंड फैकल्टी। आई रिक्वेस्ट विजय गुप्ता जी टू काइंडली इंट्रोड्यूस दी फैकल्टी ऑफ टुडे, सीए अशोक बत्रा जी। और पैनलिस्ट से एक और रिक्वेस्ट है कि जैसे ही सेशन शुरू होता है काइंडली अपने वीडियोस ऑफ करें रखें, सिर्फ फैकल्टी ही अपना वीडियो ऑन रखे ताकि बैंडविड्थ की कोई इशू ना आए।
अश्वनी सर, एक अनाउंसमेंट है पार्टिसिपेंट्स के लिए। जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स वेबएक्स पे लॉगिन हुए हैं उनको कहीं पे भी अटेंडेंस मार्क करने की जरूरत नहीं है, उनकी अटेंडेंस ऑटोमेटिकली मार्क होगी। और जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स यूट्यूब लाइव पे देख रहे हैं वो प्लीज अपने नाम के साथ अपना ईमेल आईडी जरूर लिखें यूट्यूब लाइव के चैट बॉक्स में। जिन्होंने लिख दिया है वो ठीक है, जिनका रह गया है प्लीज अपना ईमेल आईडी जिससे आपने रजिस्ट्रेशन करी है वो जरूर प्लीज लिखें चैट बॉक्स में और यूट्यूब पे अटेंडेंस मार्क करें। और अब हमारा सेशन वेबएक्स का फुल हो चुका है, तो मैं चैट बॉक्स में यूट्यूब लाइव का लिंक एक बार दोबारा डाल रहा हूं। अगर आपके कोई फ्रेंड्स हैं या आपके कोई नोन टूज हैं जो ज्वाइन नहीं कर पा रहे वेबएक्स पे, प्लीज आस्क देम टू ज्वाइन ऑन यूट्यूब लाइव। थैंक यू सर।
हाँ जी विजय जी सर।
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, all. Respected Sanjay ji, Ashok Batra ji, Ashwani Jindal ji, Avinash Gupta ji, and all other panelists, my co-moderator, ये नव्या मल्होत्रा ji. Friends, yesterday we have learned about the basic concept of supply. What constitutes a supply, and if one taxable person become liable for registration, what is the threshold limit for registration? To a wonderful deliberation of CA Achal Kapoor. Today we have GST Guru CA Ashok Batra ji with us, who will deliberate on the topic of time and place of supply. Friends, it is also one of the basic limb of the GST. Yesterday we have learned about the IGST, CGST, SGST and UTGST. Friend, we have to understand also on which transaction which tax has to be paid. किसी भी ट्रांजैक्शन पर कौन सा टैक्स जमा होना है, आईजीएसटी जमा होना है या सीजीएसटी या एसजीएसटी जमा होना है, उसके बारे में आज हमें ये अशोक बत्रा जी बिल्कुल वेल एक्सप्लेन करेंगे। आईजीएसटी के सेक्शन 10 से लेके सेक्शन 13 के प्रोविजंस और टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई के प्रोविजंस भी जो सीजीएसटी एक्ट में दिए हुए हैं वो एक्सप्लेन किए जाएंगे। अब मैं अशोक बत्रा जी का थोड़ा सा ब्रीफ प्रोफाइल पढ़ता हूँ। वैसे तो अशोक जी किसी भी परिचय के मोहताज नहीं है, वो अपने आप में जीएसटी सब्जेक्ट के गुरु हैं, हम सबके गुरु हैं, प्रोफेशन सीए प्रोफेशन के गुरु हैं। फ्रेंड्स, अशोक जी ने 1981 में ही क्वालिफाइड एज ए चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट एंड इन 2009 he also became a law graduate. He is a commerce graduate from the SRCC and is also a member of alumni of the SRCC. Friend, he is a senior partner in AK Batra and Associates. He has authored many books which are well received in the market, and namely the GST Law and Procedure, GST Audit and Annual Return, GST Ready Reckoner, and he also wrote a book on the Sabka Vikas Legacy Dispute Resolution 19. He is a faculty on the certificate course of GST Indirect Tax Committee. He has also got many awards. He has given so much of the number cannot be counted even. Now I am not taking much of your time and request Ashok Batra ji to start his deliberation.
Good afternoon, friends. Today, I have been given a topic which is time and place of supply. In any transaction of indirect taxes, the first thing is whether that transaction is subject to GST, for which you have to refer to the definition of supply and the charging section. Thereafter, the question comes if it is taxable and whether it is supply of goods or service. And once we determine that, reading with Schedule 2, then the next question comes at which rate the same is subject to tax, for which we have to refer to the various schedules. If it is a goods, then we have to refer to the goods schedule. If it is a service, then we have to refer to the service schedule. And then comes whether it is a transaction of interstate supply और इंट्रास्टेट सप्लाई। जैसे विजय जी बता रहे थे कि जो प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई रूल्स हैं वो आपको ये बताते हैं कि ट्रांजैक्शन इंट्रास्टेट है या इंटरस्टेट है, बिकॉज ऑल दी ट्रांजैक्शंस अंडर जीएसटी हैज बीन क्लासिफाइड इनटू टू कैटेगरीज. One is interstate, another is intrastate. If it is a intrastate transaction, then we all understand it is subject to CGST and SGST, which are state specific. And if it is a interstate transaction, then certainly it is liable to tax at IGST. We all understand CGST plus SGST is equal to IGST, tax incidence will be the same. There are 4 sections which are governing these provisions, section 10 to 13 of IGST Act, not CGST, I am repeating, IGST Act. Section 10 and 11 deals with the place of supply in relation to goods, and section 12 and 13 deals with the supply of services. According to my understanding, this is the most important 4th section in IGST Act, and ultimately it provides you a professional opportunity to do the value addition also. During the course of discussion, I'll tell you, if you plan a transaction keeping these provisions in view, you may avoid the tax liability also. When I say avoid, I am not saying evasion through tax planning. Before we come to those sections, let me refer to section 7, which deals with the definition of interstate. Section 7 of IGST Act says, subject to the provision of section 10. You all understand what is the meaning of subject to provision of section 10. If there is any conflict, section 10 shall prevail. Where the location of supply and place of supply is in 2 different states, it is a IGST. Similarly, subsection 2 says that the supply of goods imported into the territory of India till they cross the custom frontier is also interstate supply. So being an interstate supply, these 2 transactions are subject to IGST. When we come to supply of services, the principle is the same, but it is subject to provision of section 12 because it is dealt in section 12 of CGST Act. So it again says the same thing, that if the location of the supply and place of supply are in 2 different states. I am repeating it for the sake of repetition, that location of supplier and place of supply. Place of supply is the topic of the day. Location of supplier we have to find out if they are in 2 different states. What is really interesting to notice is that location of the recipient does not have any place in this subsection. But kindly appreciate, when we determine the place of supply, the recipient location may be one of the relevant factors. But that is a relevant factor to determine the place of supply. At the end of the day, we have to understand that what is the location of supplier and what is the place of supply. If they are in 2 different states, then certainly it is interstate, otherwise it is intrastate. Now, supply of goods or services are both when the supplier is located in India and place of supply is outside India is always interstate. Supplies made to or supplies made by a SEZ developer or SEZ unit is also interstate supply. Let us give an example to explain this. If there is a supplier in Gujarat and he is selling goods to SEZ developer located in Gujarat, it shall be interstate supply, even though both supplier and recipient both are located in the state of Gujarat only, but IGST will be charged. This is because of the specific provision provided in subsection 5 of section 7. Similarly, when SEZ developer in Gujarat is making some domestic clearance and supplying goods to the dealer in Gujarat, again, though both are in Gujarat, still he will charge IGST. And then there is a residual clause which says if the transaction is not intrastate, which we will discuss in the next slide, then certainly it will be IGST. Now, what is interstate supply? It has been discussed in section 8 of IGST Act. It says where the location of the supplier and place of supply both are in the same state, as I told you. Similar is the provision with regard to services. In the case of services, the specific exclusion supply of services who are by a special economic zone. As I told you, it is an exception. Though they are both in the same state, still it is subject to IGST. And in the case of goods also, because there have been specific provisions being made, here again they say supply of goods to or by a SEZ developer will be classified as interstate. Goods imported will be interstate and supplied to a tourist under Section 15 who can claim the refund. Of course, that procedure has not been implemented as on date, but yes, in case you are leaving the country, then any supply made to that tourist under Section 15 shall also be subject to interstate supply and shall be subject to IGST. Now, this is an explanation which is applicable for the purpose of the Act. This is really important to understand. It says that an establishment in India and any other establishment outside India, in a state or other state, or even in the same state, they shall all be treated as a distinct person of establishment. And it is not a transaction between two distinct persons of the same path, it is also subject to GST. Then explanation 2, which again applies to the whole Act, says that a person carrying on business through a branch or agency or a representational office shall be treated as an establishment in that case. These two things are very, very important to understand when it comes to location of the supplier, because ultimately मैंने आप सबसे कहा दो चीजें ढूंढनी है, लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लायर एंड प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई. अगर सेम स्टेट में तो इंट्रास्टेट, नहीं तो इंट्रास्टेट. Now, location of supplier of goods has not been defined in the law, but yes, location of supplier of service has been defined in the Act itself, which is an exhaustive definition, which says if the supply is made from the place of business for which the registration has been obtained, the location of such. 90% of the cases shall fall in this category because most of the business are registered in a state and they are having one registration number. So 90% is the place of registration. But where there is a multiple registration, then they say other than the place of business, so fixed establishment, जिस number से आपने supply की है, that will be the place of the location of supplier. Similarly, if the supply has been made from more than one establishment, then the establishment which is most directly concerned with the same supply, and in the absence of such, then the place of residence of the supplier will be the location of the supplier of service. Again, I am repeating, unfortunately, location of supplier of goods has not been defined either in CGST or IGST, but taking a clue from this definition, we can apply the same parameter for the location of supplier. This is what I was telling you. We have to take this is not. Now, place of supply of goods has been defined in Section 10 of IGST Act, and practically it contains 5 subsections. One, where the supply involves movement of goods. Subsection 2 deals with a situation that does not involve the goods, then bill to ship to transaction. Then where the supply of goods is being done in the SKD form, semi-off-road situation, and assembled at the site. And then supply of goods on board a conveyance. These are the 5 situations which has been dealt in Section 10. Now we'll go and deal with one-to-one situation with examples. Because the consequences are very serious. If you are liable to pay tax as IGST, but you have charged CGST and SGST, though you have paid the same amount of tax, for the consequences we need to read Section 19 of IGST Act and Section 77 of CGST Act, which clearly provide that you have to pay tax to the government which is entitled for it. And yes, if you, and then wherever you have wrongly paid the tax, you have to claim it. Only appreciate the amount of cash involved. If an item is liable to be taxed at 18%, 100 rupees is the value of supply. I have charged CGST and SGST 9 rupees each, but it is subject to IGST. I have to pay IGST to the government once it comes to the knowledge of the department, and then claim a refund of 9 rupees from state government and 9 rupees from central government. When it's supply of 10 rupees, if I have to pay 36 where I have collected only 18 rupees from my client, 80 rupees goes out of my own pocket, and it is being struck up for a considerable period of time. How much is the margin in that transaction? You can all understand. So for that matter, kindly read, once again I am repeating, Section 19(19) of IGST Act and Section 77 of CGST. Coming to Section 10, where the movement of goods is involved. Now, let us understand that movement of goods has to be in terms of the agreement. That agreement may be verbal, that agreement may be in writing. So we have to read the transaction very carefully, and where there is a movement of goods, and that movement may be by the supplier or recipient or any other person who may be an agent of the supplier or the recipient, does not make a difference. So first of all, we have to identify in the case of goods, if there is an involvement of supply of goods, then certainly it is the location at which the movement of goods terminate for delivery. I've given a couple of examples to explain it. Of course, this PPT will be available as Sanjay also promised you. I'll email it to him, and then you can access this PPT. Mr. A is having a registration in Delhi and purchased furniture from Mr. B of Haryana, and he asked him to supply the furniture in Delhi. Now, what is the place of supply? Where the movement of goods terminate, that is Delhi. And what is the location of supply? Location of supply is Haryana, because I am buying it from a Haryana dealer. So both are in a different state, so it is subject to IGST. Similarly, A located in Delhi, furniture from B in Haryana, but because he wants to gift that furniture to her sister in Haryana itself, and ask the Haryana dealer, you deliver said goods to my sister in Haryana. Though I am in Delhi, same situation, but now because the termination of delivery is in the state of Haryana also, though the invoice will be raised at the address of Delhi, it will be a transaction of intrastate. The location of the supplier, that is Haryana, we have already determined, and place of supply is also in Haryana because the delivery has been given by Bahadurgarh dealer to Rohtak dealer. So obviously that terminates in Haryana itself. So it will be a transaction of intrastate supply subject to CGST and IGST. Here I have given an example which I have already explained it to you. So to save the time, because I have been given to understand the program has been structured in such a manner that last half an hour is for question answer session. You can read this. I have already explained it, so I'm moving to next slide. Now I'm talking about a situation where the build to ship to model is. What is build to ship to model? Where the goods are delivered by the supplier to a recipient or any other person on the direction of a third person, then it is the location of the third person. Let us understand this. This transaction involves three parties. One, to place the order to a supplier of goods, and the goods are supplied to a third person at the request of the original person who has placed the order. तीन आदमी होंगे और location of supply होगी third person. Third person means neither a consignor nor the consignee, but he is the one who has placed the order for supply of goods. So in these transactions, there are two supplies. One where the supplier is where the third person is asking the supplier to deliver the goods to his customer. Then supplier will raise the invoice in the name of third person, and then third person will raise the invoice in the name of customer. Kindly appreciate this example. Sham, who is registered in Delhi, has placed an order to Ram, who is registered in Mumbai. So Delhi dealer asking the Mumbai dealer to deliver the goods in Delhi. Now Ram has placed an order. So Ram is the third person. Supplier is Sham, who is registered in Delhi, and the goods have come to Delhi. So we have to see location of supplier and place of supply. So supplier location is Mumbai, third person location is Delhi. So obviously both are in different states. So it is a transaction which is subject to IGST. I am again repeating, in these kind of transactions, there are three parties involved. One, it makes commercial sense. Kindly appreciate why this provision is there. If you look at the earlier law, then there was used to be a sale in the movement of goods or build to ship to model. So it covered this. To cover such situation, they have enacted this law, which makes real logic. Kindly appreciate. I am a dealer in Delhi. I have a customer in Ahmedabad. Supplier is in Mumbai. it makes no commercial sense that the goods should come from Mumbai to Delhi and again go back to Ahmedabad. So I am asking the supplier in Mumbai to deliver the goods to my customer in Ahmedabad. So he will bill it to me and send the goods to Ahmedabad. Because I am in Delhi, he is in Mumbai. So it is a IGST supply because third person and the supplier is in different state. And assuming I am also in Mumbai, supplier is also in Mumbai, and I ask him to supply the goods to Delhi, then even if the goods are moving to Delhi or Ahmedabad, but still it will be a interstate supply because the location of supplier, that is the dealer who is supplying the goods, is in Mumbai, and the person who is directing him to supply the goods is also in Mumbai. This is really important to understand and very important section will be shipped to. In case you had any query with regard to that, we will deal with the question. So I have explained this transaction in this chart. B in Delhi, A has placed an order to B to supply the goods directly to C, who is in Delhi. So now B is the supplier. A is the third person. He is neither consignor nor consignee. He is the consignor. He is the consignee. The goods are moving from Delhi to Delhi, and he is in Punjab. So the location of third person is in Punjab. I am in Delhi. It is the IGST transaction. Even though the goods have not moved out of Delhi, the goods remain in Delhi. So once this is one supply, and then the second supply has been made by Mr. A, who is customer to Mr. C in Delhi. So he will raise the invoice here. He is the supplier. Location of supplier is in Punjab, and place of supply is in Delhi. So he will also charge IGST. So I have tried to explain this concept in a chart. Now we are coming to the second issue, which we have already discussed. Now we can go to third one, where the supply does not involve movement of goods. अब मैं बॉम्बे में घूम रहा हूँ, मैंने बॉम्बे में कुछ सामान लिया, उसने मुझे वहां ओवर द काउंटर सप्लाई दे दी, तो यहाँ प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई शैल बी लोकेशन वेयर द डिलीवरी इज बीइंग गिवन टू द रिसीवर. इस तरह के ट्रांजैक्शन में सबसे ज्यादा जो ध्यान रखने वाली बात है कि अगर ये B2B सप्लाई है, फॉर एग्जांपल आई एम ए trader in Delhi, I am moving in Mumbai, somehow I like certain goods and I find that these goods can be carried by me and I take the delivery for the purpose of resale in Delhi, then you are in real difficulty because you have taken the delivery over the counter. You have never told him that this goods has to go to Mumbai. He will charge you CGST and SGST of Maharashtra. And once he will charge CGST in Maharashtra and you will sell it from Delhi, certainly in that invoice CGST, SGST of Maharashtra, you will not get the credit for the same. So kindly make sure in case you are taking the delivery, these kind of transaction, if B2C, absolutely no problem. But if it is a B2B transaction, this section should be avoided and must make arrangement in such a manner that ultimately he charge the IGST, which can be done very easily. He can say, I am a dealer in Delhi. You have to move these goods on my behalf, or you can arrange for the transporter. I will move these goods to this, and this is my GST number of Delhi. He will raise the invoice in Delhi address, mentioning the GST number, and there is a movement of goods which has been agreed between both the parties. Certainly, it will be IGST. If that being so, certainly I will claim the credit of this sale. Then comes situation number 4, when the goods are to be assembled or installed at a site. In such situation, the place of supply shall be where the installation is. For example, I have given an example here itself. Mr. A has been asked by Mr. B to supply certain machinery and assemble it in Haryana, where he is setting up a new factory. So the order has been given to by Mr. B, who is having registration only in Delhi right now, but yes, he is setting up a factory in Haryana. So once I am sending the goods in CKD situation and assembling it at Haryana, then the place of supply shall be treated as place where the assembly is being done. So it will be a IGST transaction. Though the person who is liable to pay the tax recipient is also prohibited. This is another example I have given. Pizza Hut registered in Delhi, opening a new branch in Agra, direct Mr. A to install furniture in Agra. A takes furniture in SKD condition, 7 outcome situation, then assembled in Agra. So because the assembling is being done in Agra, it will be IGST supply. So Pizza Hut has placed an order to a dealer who is also in Delhi. For the place of supply, I have to see the location of supply. Location of supply is undoubtedly in Delhi. Goods are assembled at Agra, it will be a IGST. Then comes finally a situation which you have seen is very common nowadays, and it has been a subject matter of dispute in the past, pre-GST era. In order to avoid those disputes, this law clearly provides when the goods are supplied on board a conveyance, including a vessel, aircraft, train, or motor vehicle, the place of supply shall be the location at which the goods are taken on board. Why it is being so? There was a very interesting case of IRCTC before Delhi High Court. The goods have been boarded from Delhi, served in Ambala, and by the time he consumed it in Punjab, the train has already ended. So the question was, because earlier it was a state subject, so in order to avoid all those litigation, now the law clearly provides where the goods are taken on board. I'm talking about goods, for example, packed food. If the packed foods, the train is moving from Delhi to Mumbai, then goods are boarded at Agra, supplies on board, supplies at Bhopal, place of supply will be Agra. Similarly, other situations. So where the goods are boarded, that is the place of supply. If the supplier is also in the same state, for example, Shtabdi starting from Punjab, if it is some dealer in Punjab who is boarding the food supply, it is Tempa, Cola, chips, etc., then certainly the place of supply is Punjab, so he will charge CGST, SGST. Yes, if he is a dealer in Punjab and he boarded goods from Ambala, then the place of boarding is goods in Ambala, so the place of supply shall be Ambala, he shall charge. Then comes export or import. It is very easy, and I think this is the simplest section out of these 4 sections. Where the goods are imported into India, the place is the location of the import. So obviously, I am in India. That is why I am liable to pay custom and IGST on all the imports being made by me. When the goods are exported from India, export means taking goods out of India to a place outside India, then the location will be outside India. And one of the conditions of zero rated that my supply or the place of supply should be outside India. And once it's an export, they don't want to tax it. So they have drafted the language in such a manner that the imports are being taxed. And in the case of export, the place of supply, which is one of the conditions of zero rated, gets satisfied so that my export can be qualified as a zero rated export, zero rated supply, and is not subject to tax. So the definitions are there, so I'm not wasting time on that. Now comes to section 9, which talk about territorial water. This is a section which is normally not being in use because most of us are not into the territorial water state. But as per the provisions of this section, it says when the place of supply and the supplier is in territorial water, then it is the coastal state which is nearest to the point of appropriate baseline is the place of supply. So for that matter, they say coastal water goes up to 12 nautical miles, which is different than kilometer and miles. Nautical miles is a different way of measurement, and it is equivalent to 14 miles and 42 kilometers from the edge of the coastal state. Then the territorial sea is land of the state. So ownership also extends to the airspace over and the seabed. This is as per the international practices. So when the transaction is there, then it is the nearest coastal state, which is the place of supply. Now, friends, after dealing with the goods, I am coming to the place of supply of services. आपके दिमाग में आ रहा होगा कि पहले भी place of supply of services rules थे service tax regime में, अब ऐसा क्यों है? Now the scheme is entirely different. My dear friends, kindly appreciate this scheme is entirely independent of the scheme which was there earlier in the service tax law. There have been common place of supply of service rules which were applicable both when the location and recipient were in India or one of the location of the supplier or recipient was outside India. But now there are 2 sections One, it says place of supply of service with location of supplier and recipient both are in India. Then we have to refer to section 12. There is a basic philosophical difference in these two sections, and these are the most critical areas where there is a possibility of committing mistakes. Section 12 is being drafted in such a manner that there should be a maximization of credit and there should not be a breakage in the chain of credit. So to maximize the credit, section 12 is being enacted, because ultimately when the location of supplier and recipient is in India and it is B2B transaction, certainly the recipient is entitled for the credit. Whereas section 13 is being drafted on international practice, where we want our import to be expensive and we want our export not to be taxed. So there the principle has been taken that export should not be subject to tax, import should be subject to tax, and based on international practices, this section has been drafted. And if you read it very carefully, you will appreciate that section 13 is almost, I'm using the word almost, a replica of place of provision of service. So minor differences here and there which are discussed. Then there can be a question in your mind, if the place of supplier and recipient both are outside India, then what will happen? Because this two section does not cover that situation where the place of supplier and place of recipient and supplier both are outside. My question to all of you, if that being the situation, whether GST can be collected. Supplier is not in the jurisdictional territory, recipient is not in the taxable territory, that transaction cannot be taxed by the Indian government. So that transaction will not be subject to tax at all. Again, I am repeating, when the supplier is outside India, let us say Dubai, the recipient is also in USA. So what India has to do with that? Certainly nothing can be done. You cannot collect a tax from a supplier of Dubai who is supplying goods to US. So that is why this situation is not being covered. Again, I am repeating, section 12, both recipient and supplier should be in India. Section 13, where either supplier or recipient is outside. That is import or export. Now, coming to section 12, which is applicable when both provider, supplier and recipient in India. General rule I am not talking about, I am talking about specific provision. If the supplier falls in any of these specific provisions, which are 12 categories from 12.3 to 12.14, then in that case, this law shall prevail. Otherwise, if it does not fall in this 12 category, then the general rule, which I'll discuss at the end, shall apply. When it comes to immovable property or houseboat or vessel, then it says services directly in relation to immovable property, including services provided by architect, interior decorator, surveyor, estate agent, any service by providing grant of right to immovable property or carrying out coordination of construction work, construction activities. Then by way of lodging accommodation by a hotel, in guest house, home stay. Kindly appreciate, when we go to section 13, it is not all that comprehensive. This is very comprehensive section. By way of accommodation in any immovable property for organizing any marriage or conception, that means under people services. When we talk about lodging accommodation by a hotel, when you are staying in a hotel, so it is, what is the place of supply? Place of supply is the place where that immovable property, boat or vessel, is located or intended to. Why the word intended to be located is an improvement from negative list era prior to that where it is located. Because if I'm constructing a property, that immovable property has yet to come into existence. So even then, this principle will apply and the place of supply shall be where the property is. This is very important. If the location of the immovable property located is outside India, then the place of supply is the location of the receipt. इसको थोड़ा ध्यान से सुन लें, अगर इमोबल प्रॉपर्टी बाहर है, बोर्ड या वैसे भी बाहर है, तो मैं इमोबल प्रॉपर्टी का एग्जांपल लूंगा. अगर इमोबल प्रॉपर्टी यूएसए में है, तो लोकेशन ऑफ द रिसिपिएंट इज द प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई. अगर आप इसको ध्यान से देखेंगे तो यू विल फाइंड देयर इज अ ह्यूज प्लानिंग इन्वॉल्वड इन दिस. लेट अस से there is a person in Delhi who had got a son-in-law who is settled in US. He want to get a house constructed for his son-in-law. Certainly, son-in-law के लिए बना रहा था, पैसे तो लेगा नहीं, but he want that house should be constructed as per Indian architecture. He appoint one Gupta and company from Delhi to construct that property. Now, if that property is to be located in USA and you simply enter into an arrangement with the Gupta properties by his father-in-law, who is the recipient is liable to make the payment, his father-in-law is liable to make the payment, then both becomes in India and the place of supply, the place of recipient, the whole construction being done in USA will become taxable because recipient father-in-law is in Delhi, supplier is in Delhi, supplier recipient both are in Delhi, and in case the property is located outside India, it is the location of the recipient. So location of the recipient is Delhi, so they can become taxable. Now assume this transaction is being structured in a different manner. Son-in-law enter into an arrangement with Mr. Gupta of Delhi to construct a property in USA. And of course, because the payment has to be made by father-in-law, so father-in-law give a gift to his son-in-law, and a son-in-law make a payment to the contractor. Now, because one of the person involved is located in abroad, not in taxable territory. Section 12 we are out, now it is Section 13. So once Section 13 property is located outside, then it is not subject to tax at all. Because supplier is in India, recipient is outside India, place of supply is outside India, is getting the payment in control foreign exchange, was contracted as a service, Section 13 shall apply, it will be treated as export of service. तो रादर मिस्टर गुप्ता जो उन्होंने कुछ IGST वगैरह कुछ मटेरियल यहाँ लिया होगा, जो उन्होंने BSE में ट्रांसफर किया होगा, उसका रिफंड भी ले सकते हैं. So kindly appreciate how it is very, very important. Where the property is located outside, then it is the place of the recipient. So what we have done, the place of the recipient is being shifted from India, his father-in-law, to his son-in-law, but because the cost has to be borne by father-in-law, so rather than paying consideration to the contractor, we have arranged in such a manner that he will give the money to his son-in-law, who will make payment to the contractor. So this is really important to understand. When they are located in more than one state, so the best course is to specify the nature of activity to be provided by each state, so that in proportion it can be decided. If it is not being done, then it has to be decided as may be prescribed in law. So far, no rule has been. Now, friends, we are coming to Section 12, subsection 4. Restaurant and catering services. Kindly appreciate what we are saying now is the specified nature of the supply. It is restaurant, catering. I am not saying what is catering, what is not catering. You have to understand that. Once we decide it is restaurant catering services, personal grooming services, fitness services, beauty treatment services, health services, including cosmetic and plastic surgery. The place of supply shall be the location where these services are actually performed. So it is a performance based where the activity is being performed, that is the place of supply. And the supplier and place of supply both in the same state, intrastate, otherwise IGST. Now, kindly appreciate, there is no general principle. They have specified specific category of services. Unlike Section 13, when we read that, kindly keep in mind the Section 12.4, how it is different in the case of Section 13. We'll come and explain it. I'll explain it when the time comes. Then comes services in relation to training and performance. Now, this is really important to understand. If it is unregistered person, that is performance based. If it is registered person, that is location of service. That is being done so that there is no loss of credit when the supply has been paid to registered. But in this case, the problem is training and appraisal. So that means both the activities, the conjunction used is and, so it has to be training and performance, or only training shall also be get covered in. I think it's a drafting issue. So there can be a implementation of or the reading of the principle, legal principle, which we say purportive intention. If we go by that, according to my personal understanding, even if it is performance appraisal only, it shall fall here. Then comes, now it is again very, very important to understand. Services provided by way of admission to a cultural, artistic, sporting, scientific, educational, entertainment, event or amusement park or any other place, and service ancillary there. Kindly appreciate services provided by way of admission. Then these are the nature of events and ancillary services. They are where the event is actually held. This is very important in the case of event management companies because once the place of supply is the place where the event is being done, then whatever supply they will take in that particular state, it will be subject to CGST and SGST, for which they will not be able to claim the credit if that event management company is registered in there. Example, for example, there's the event management company is organizing an event in Mumbai. And once the event is in Mumbai, he has to take a hotel in Mumbai, he has to take various services in Mumbai. So obviously Mumbai people, location of the supplier is in Mumbai. Place of supply, because the event is in Mumbai, he will charge CGST, SGST of Maharashtra, which will go based on it will add to my cost because I am registered in it. So that is why in the case of event management services, we always suggest that you should seek registration in Mumbai also. Wherever that event management company is having most of its event, 3 states, 4 states, in every state, it should get registered there so that it can place an order to their own another registration. So it is a cross charge supply. So he will bill it to Delhi company, IGST, supplier will bill it to the local office, CGST, SGST, for the credit will be available. So this is really important to understand that in the case of event management, this planning needs to be done very carefully. But when it comes to service by way of organization of, here it is admission. Kindly appreciate. Here it is admission, here it is organization of a cultural, artistic, sporting, educational. This is the nature of activity and services ancillary. So nature of event are almost the same. Organization comes under subsection 7, admission comes under 6, and services ancillary there too goes along with that. In this case, unlike the rule 6, where it is the place of supply, in this case, in the case of unregistered person, it is the same. But in the case of registered person, it is the location of service. Because again, as I told you, to maximize the credit and the credit chain should not be broken, it has been taken care of. If the event is held outside India, then it is the location of the recipient. It is exactly on the same line which was there in the case of immovable property also. When the event has been held in more than one state, then according to the area, we must define the nature of such each state so that each state can be treated as a place of supply. And in the absence of such contract and agreement, on the basis on which the government may prescribe, for which no rules have been notified in the. Now, friends, come to 12.8. This is very important. In spite of the fact that this section is very clear, still there is a lot of doubt in the minds of the professionals as well as the supplier. It clearly says, kindly appreciate the language of this section. Services by way of transportation of goods, including by mail of. So transportation of goods, including by mail or courier, all three have been combined into one rule, where the rule is in case the service has been provided to the registered person, it is his location. And in case the service has been provided to unregistered person, then the place of supply is the location at which goods are handed over from the transfer. एक आदमी की ट्रांसफर हो गई, उसका कोई लेना देना नहीं है GST से, he was a government employee. So where, let us say, he is in Gurgaon and he has been transferred to Punjab. So he is handing over his goods in Gurgaon, which is a residential place. And if we engage a transporter from Delhi, then it will be IGST because the location of supply is in Delhi and the place of supply is where the goods have been given for location. But in case he engage a transporter from Gurgaon itself, in that case, certainly the location of supplier will be Gurgaon and the location of the goods where the goods have been handed over for transportation also Gurgaon. It will be a CGST assist. In the case of registered person, it appears to be a simple thing, but kindly appreciate a dealer in Delhi engages a transporter in Delhi to send his goods to Jammu. So now, obviously now the goods will transfer from Haryana to Punjab and then Himachal and then maybe Jammu. So it may cross 4 states, doesn't matter, because it is a transaction between two registered persons and the place of supply is the place of the location of such registered person. So the dealer was in Delhi, transporter was in Delhi, though the goods are moving out of Delhi, still it will be intra-state supply. Kindly appreciate. Location of supply, that is transporter, is in Delhi. Location of place of supply is also in Delhi because it is the destination place of the recipient, which is in Delhi. So even though the goods are moving to Punjab, it will be intra-state supplies, to CGST. However, when the transportation of goods place outside India, let us say the goods can move to Nepal, goods can move to Bangladesh, goods can move to Sri Lanka by road, then the place of supply shall be the place of destination. Now, this is the principle which has been taken from section 13. Why it is being done? Kindly appreciate. इसको इसलिए किया गया कि जब नेपाल माल जाएगा, इसका मतलब आप एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हो, और अगर एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हो ये लोकेशन वाला यही प्रिंसिपल अप्लाई होता तो ये ट्रांजैक्शन सीजीएसटी एसजीएसटी में आ जाता। अब उन्होंने कहा प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई कहाँ है? आउटसाइड। So once it is outside India, it can classify as an export of service, and there have been a specific period when this INR was also permitted by the RBI to qualify as a zero duty supply. So there is a possibility, if I am sending goods to Nepal, I am an exporter, and the RBI permits me to take the payment in INR, then certainly it can be treated as a zero rated export of goods, and the exporter they don't want to tax. But once I am importing certain things from Nepal, then it is a place of destination. So the goods are destined to Delhi. Certainly the place of supply is in Delhi. Though the transporter is of Nepal, it is taxable as IGST transaction. Under the reverse charge, I am liable to pay the tax. So this is being specifically done to make sure that supplies from Nepal become more expensive and supplies from India become cheaper. Then come passenger transportation services. Again, registered person, unregistered person, registered person location, and unregistered person where he embarks on a conveyance for a continuous journey has also been defined. It is a complicated subject, but yes. For example, I have taken a ticket from Delhi to Bombay and then Bombay to Delhi. This proviso says the right to passage of future use. Where the embarkation is not known, then general rule shall apply. And for the purpose of return journey, it will be a separate journey. It is being done so that every state gets the benefit. For example, I am booking a ticket from Indigo from Delhi to Mumbai. I am embarking from Delhi. If that this explanation would not have been there, so the GST paid on Delhi to Bombay and Bombay to Delhi both would have gone to Delhi government. So they say return journey is a separate journey. So when I'm coming from Mumbai to Delhi, the place of supply is Mumbai. So even if Indigo is in Delhi, the venue is IGST, which will be shared by the state. So return journey has been made separate. Continuous journey where there is no stopover. So it is again a subject which requires some time to discuss, and I have to discuss still time of supply also and question answer. So I am not dealing much of this. If you had any specific issue, you can ask. Now, these are certain examples which I have given to make it clear. For example, A books a ticket from Jet Airways from Delhi to Toronto. So Delhi to Toronto, location of supplies in Delhi, place of supply because I am parking place, I am parking the journey from Delhi, so it is intrastate. When Toronto to UK, that means location of supply Delhi, Delhi से ticket ले रहा हूँ, place of supply Toronto, so it is subject to IGST. Similarly, New York to Delhi, IGST. Similarly, I have given this example. Ultimately, this PPT is to be shared between you. with all of you. You can read it at the time. Now comes the place of supply of service on board at the mills, including a vessel, aircraft, train, or you can say what can be the services. For example, I am taking a cruise, and then I am availing number of services there. Maybe I am asking for a specific movie to be screened. Maybe I am availing other services, beauty parlor, etc. So they say because the cruise has to cross on various countries, they say where you board that train or board the motor vehicle. So these kind of services shall be subject to tax, where the place of supply shall be the place where the cruise will take start. Let us say Mumbai, there is a cruise now Mumbai to Singapore, assuming. I don't know whether it is practically possible or not, but I am just giving an example. The place of supply shall be Mumbai. I am buying the ticket from Mumbai, so it will be a CGST. So the whole ticket, including the services part, shall be subject to Maharashtra tax and central. This is a specific section for telecommunication because there are very few telecommunication suppliers and it's very boring to read this section. But principally, it is the location of the recipient, billing address, where the tower is being installed, etc. Very few suppliers are there, and most of us don't have those clients because very few companies are there. So I am not discussing this slide just to save the time. Then comes banking and other financial services, including stock. This is again very important. Supply of banking and other financial services. So banking and stock broking services in nutshell. Location of the recipient of service on the record. If it is not available on the record, then the place of supply location of supply. In the case of banking, because a lot of KYC is being done, it is very unlikely that the place of location of the recipient or his address is not available on record. Even in the case of stock broking also, now they are subject to so many audits. The location of the recipient will be available, and depending upon the location of the recipient, it is the place of supply. Assuming a Jammu dealer does the stock trading of Delhi dealer and his address is there in Jammu, then the stock broker will charge IGST. And the stock broker who is providing service to Delhi client will charge SGST and CGST. Similarly, in the bank, if I am a bank in Jammu resident comes to me to open an account and he gives his Jammu address, certainly I'll charge IGST. Otherwise, it will be CGST. Then comes insurance services. It is absolutely as per the general rule by a registered person, the location of such person. This is there very common. See, if unregistered person, the location of the recipient in the record of the supplier, and if that place is not. Now, these two amendments which has been made are very, very important to understand. For example, this 1215 to 1214 applies only to one specific service, that is advertisement service. And advertisement service also when given to central government, state government, statutory body, local authority. So once advertisement is being done for persons other than central government, state government, or statutory body or local authority, so all these terms have been defined. We have to go to these definitions, look at it, whether they fall into there. If the recipient falls there, then only this rule shall apply. Barring that, when I am providing advertisement services to any other person other than these categories, then the default. यहाँ यही है कि place of supply will be state-wise. For example, if I am union government has given an ad for Corona, and in that Corona period, let us say there has been an ad in Delhi, Maharashtra, India, Haryana, etc. So whatever is the amount of service provided in these states, that will be the place of supply. But in case it's a consolidated amount, then it will be on the basis of the agreement, or in such manner as may be prescribed. That manner is not being prescribed, but then quantum of service has to be identified on some reasonable basis. The law is very clear. The whole revenue will not go to the state where this contract is being made, but where the services are being provided, the revenue shall be shared by all such states. That is the intent for this service. Now there is a default category of service. In this, As I told you, if the services have been provided to the registered person, the standard rule, then the location of such person, as I told you, location of such person is where he is registered. And in case it is the location, if the service has been provided to unregistered person, then if the address of the recipient is available on record, then as per that address, the place of supply should be. Similarly, if the address is not there, then the location of the supplier or service. So that means wherever the address is not there, it will be CGST, SGST transaction. Yes, where the address is available, it can be IGST. But because it is unregistered person, tax is safe, it is not going to make much. But in most of the situation, we'll be able to find out what is the information. Now, friends, I am coming to last section. So for the place of supply and concern. I am straight away going to section 13.3 applicability. I have told you where either the supplier or the recipient is outside India. So that means import or export. This is performance-based services where the services are active. When I was reading section 12, I was talking about restaurant services, grooming services, health and fitness services, beauty services, and cosmetic surgery, etc. Here, there is no nature of service. Here is general principle. It says if in respect to the goods which has to be made physically available, and we talk about where the person has to be physically available. So in those situations, it is the principle. It is not the nature of service. Wherever you find that the service has to be provided on the goods and those goods has to be made available, then it is performance-based service. There have been certain exceptions to that. We'll come to those exceptions also. But the fact remains that it is a place where the services are performed and there is no specific service. It is a principle. Wherever the goods have been made available. For example, when I was reading section 12, I was telling the transportation of goods including mail or courier. But here, if it is a courier, certainly it is a performance-based services. I have to deliver my goods to him. Then it is a performance-based, and this rule will apply. That means, वहाँ registered person का था place of supply. If I am providing to a registered person, if unregistered person, then where the goods have been delivered for transportation. But here, it is a principle, kindly appreciate this. Provided that when services are provided from a location by way of electronic, now there is a situation wherein I can repair the computer located in US. This rule if we apply, then I am a person who is providing services from India. The place of supply is the goods where they are located at the time of supply because I am providing through remote location. I am entering into his computer, team view and all that, all those software are there. So where the goods are located, it is being done to ensure that it can qualify as an exporter. Then comes that nothing contained in this clause shall apply when the goods have been temporarily imported into India and for the purpose of repair and without being put to any use in India. This is all improvement over the previous language to plug the loopholes, other than which is required for repair. I'll just explain it. अगर मैंने कुछ goods बाहर से मंगवाए और उसे रिपेयर के लिए, तो goods तो परफॉर्मेंस बेस्ड है. जहाँ मुझे goods देनी पड़ेगी तो प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई मेरी इंडिया में हो जाती है, इंडिया में हो जाती है, टैक्सेबल हो जाती है. तो बताइए अगर वो सिर्फ रिपेयर के लिए आ रही है, वो किसी भी और यूज पे नहीं, लोगों ने इसका मिसयूज किया, पहले गुड्स मंगा ली, 6 महीने उसको यूज किया, उसके बाद रिपेयर करके भेज दी. नहीं, it cannot be put to any other use. It is only for the purpose of repair, and once you export it, then this rule will not apply. Meaning thereby general rule, which means location of the recipient. तो उन्होंने उस इंडस्ट्री को एनकरेज करने के लिए अगर आप अपने रिपेयर के लिए गुड्स भेजते हैं तो उन्होंने ये कहा प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई परफॉर्मेंस बेस्ड नहीं होगा, लोकेशन ऑफ द रिसिपिएंट होगा, so that your service can be treated as zero rated and you can earn foreign exchange. Once the goods are coming from overseas and I am repairing it in India, certainly I will earn foreign exchange for the country. But because if place of supply, this exception would not have created, then my place of performance would have been in India. And in order to qualify as zero rated supply, the place of supply need to be outside India. So they have carved out this exception. And you'll find this principle in number of other services also. Wherever the government want to give impetus to the export, and they want that industry, because the place of supply should not come into the picture, and if this transaction should not become taxable, so they have called out this exception by way of provision. Highly appreciate this. Then individual में जहाँ आपको कोई physically presence चाहिए, for example, I cannot provide coaching services unless otherwise you are present here. I cannot provide photography services unless otherwise that individual is not presented. I cannot provide security service to a VIP unless otherwise is physical present. So there again the same principle is there. That was in relation to goods. This is in relation to individuals. It is the place where the services are being actually. For example, there is a fashion show in USA. Certain Indian models are there. The contract has been given to a company in India. So Indian company goes to USA to perform that services because the beauty treatment service has been given in USA, so it can qualify as an exporter. But other way around, if there is a fashion event in India and some foreign photographer, some foreign company comes and provides beauty treatment service to the model in India, then certainly it will become taxable because it is an importer. Now, in relation to immovable property, as I told you, it is the place where the immovable property is located. Here, the definition is not all that exhaustive as it was in section 12. हाँ बहुत सारी चीजें इंक्लूड की गई थी, यहाँ ये की गई है सिर्फ स्पेसिफिक. तो इस रूल को अप्लाई करने के लिए थोड़ा इसको ध्यान से पढ़ेंगे, एंड देन द रूल इज द सेम वेयर द प्रॉपर्टी इज लोकेटेड और इंटेंडेड. एंड एज आई टोल्ड यू, आई वाज गिविंग यू एन एग्जांपल ऑफ सन इन लॉ. अगर सन इन लॉ इज द पर्सन लायबल टू मेक पेमेंट टू दैट कॉन्ट्रैक्टर इन दिल्ली, गुप्ता कॉन्ट्रैक्टर, तो रिसिपिएंट बाहर था, सप्लाई बाहर होगी, पेमेंट फॉरेन एक्सचेंज में है तो एक्सपोर्ट हो जाएगी, अदरवाइज इट विल सब्जेक्ट टू टैक्स. आई हैव ऑलरेडी डेल्ट इन डिटेल, सो आई एम जस्ट not repeating it for the sake of repetition. Now coming to service supplied by admission. Now kindly appreciate, when I was reading section 12, there it was admission under a different category where the performance is being done, and organization in the case of registered person was the location of such person. Here all services in relation to either admission or organization with respect to all cultural, artistic, sporting, the nature of event which has been covered there, has been included there in the place of supply where the event is actually held. If the event is held in India, foreign companies are coming here, it is an import liable to be taxed under reverse charge. If it is outside India, kindly appreciate why admission organization there, because once the supplier and recipient both are in India and the service has been provided to the registered person, they say it is the location of such person so that there is no loss of credit. But the purpose of section 13 is not to maintain the chain of credit. The purpose is to increase the export, to provide impetus to the export, and to make import expensive. So keeping in view that admission and organization both have been kept in the same subsection. When it is more than one location, then it is taxable territory. देखिए यहाँ उन्होंने एक और इंश्योर किया कि अगर आपने कोई कॉन्ट्रैक्ट किया है where the services are to be provided in Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka and India, even if part of the services have been provided in India, the whole supply will be taxable. And India also, let us say, that is to be provided in 3 states, Delhi, Haryana and Punjab, and outside India is 70%. 30% has been divided, 5% in Punjab, 10% in Delhi and 15% in Haryana. The maximum portion has been done in Haryana, so the place of supply shall be Haryana, and the whole transaction will be taxable. So the better course is, for the purpose of planning, if that being so, you should enter into 2 agreements. One service is provided outside the taxable territory and one within India. By doing so, you can make export for the services provided outside India. But if it is one consolidated agreement wherein outside India and local place, that is taxable territory, is also being included, then because there is a territory in India, it will become subject to tax. The whole transaction. I was telling you there the language in section 12 was banking services and stock broking services. Here it is not so. Here services supplied by a banking company, financial company to its account holder. So even in the case of banking company, they have made two transactions, services provided to the account holder, then there can be services which has been provided to other customers of the bank. Maybe I want my bank to act my consultant for investment advisory services. I'm not supposed to have an account. I may be having an account in some other bank, but I appoint SBI as my consultant to advise me for the purpose of making investment in India. So those services not been covered here. Here, it is only the services provided to the account. Then intermediary services, this is the most controversial service. Why? Because intermediary definition has been widened since 1st July 2012. Means a broker, an agent, or any other person from what term called who arrange a facility supply of goods or services. तो ये कमीशन एजेंट जो होते हैं जो सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स में हेल्प करते हैं तो पहले कमीशन एजेंट की सर्विसेज को सिर्फ ये माना जाता था कि इसमें कवर होगी बट नाउ काइंडली सी a broker, an agent, or any other person, whatever called, who arranges or facilitate the supply of goods. In fact, if you ask me, I can speak for 1.5 hours on this clause only. But because I have to cover two topics, I am just telling you, kindly read this definition very clearly. Because in this case, the place of supply is the location of supplier. So in all the three cases, that means having a means of transport, including jet, but excluding aircraft and vessel. अब इनको यहाँ से क्यों एक्सक्लूड किया? सिंपल रीजन, अगर मेरी इंडियन कंपनी कोई वहां से वेसल लेती है and if I put up here, then it can never be an export. इन सर्विसेज का सबसे बड़ा नुकसान ये है कि इसका लोकेशन, प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई या लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लाई. So if I am an intermediary service, even though I am earning foreign exchange, because the place of supply is in India, it can never be export. So either it is banking company, either it is intermediary service, or it is hiring a means of transport up to a period of 1 month. Long lease has not been included for certain specified purposes, which if the time permit, I'll explain it to you. It can never be an export. So looking to this aspect, these provisions were being challenged, saying that these are against the spirit of the GST, because the spirit of the GST to increase the export, and in all these cases, these suppliers were located in India can never be treated as an exporter. So this very recently there is a judgment in the case of Material Recycling Association of India. Very recently this judgment has come only a couple of days down the line by Gujarat High Court, upholding the constitutional validity of export. Say if the government doesn't want to give you the benefit of export, it is the privilege of the government only. These provisions, when challenged, have been upheld by the court, saying these are well within the power of the sector law. The constitutional validity, which is being challenged, is being decided in favor of women. तो इन केसेस में एक्सपोर्ट नहीं होता है और इन केसेस को बड़े ध्यान से आप देखें, क्योंकि अगर बैंकिंग कंपनी में आपको एडवाइस करें तो अकाउंट होल्डर की सर्विसेज है सिर्फ. इंटरमीडिएट सर्विसेज बहुत बड़ी डेफिनेशन है. रेंज ऑफ फैसिलिटेटिंग सप्लाई, not only commission agent who is facilitating the supply by way of providing transportation services, supervised services, after sales services, pre-delivery inspection services. All these have become intermediate and can never be export, even though you have been appointed by the foreign company and you're getting the payment in convertible foreign exchange. But because the place of supply is in India, can never be a zero limit. Then friends, supply of transportation of goods. वहाँ मेल और कोरियर इंक्लूड था सेक्शन 12. यहाँ अदर देन बाय वे ऑफ मेल और कोरियर. तो मेल और कोरियर परफॉर्मेंस बेस्ड है, where the goods have to be delivered, जैसे मैंने आपसे बताया. When it is a performance based services, so obviously it becomes taxable. But once it comes to transportation of goods, the place of supply shall be the place of destination of such goods. Again, it is being done to provide impetus to the export and to display the import. Once my exporter, he will have a freight forwarder in India only, the goods will go on to USA, Dubai, outside India, then the place of supply is outside India. Certainly, if the payment is being received in control foreign exchange, there is no question of any tax. If it is owned by the person recipient, he can make the payment in foreign exchange. Then in that situation, it can be there will be no tax on export. Whereas in the case of import, because the place of supply itself will be in India, so all import trade will become tax. Supply in respect of passenger transportation services same है जहाँ पे आप embark करेंगे जर्नी के लिए continuous supply के लिए and then services provided on board and conveyance again for scheduled departure जैसे मैंने आपको उसका एग्जांपल दिया बॉम्बे का दिया नाम टू there. Now comes a very important section 1310. Why I am saying so? Because in this COVID we are using these services very often, and more importantly, the definition of online information, it is in contrast with the earlier definition, it is very different and very wide. यहाँ location of the recipient of service. आज आप Netflix पे जो सर्विसेज लेते हैं, प्राइम वीडियो पे लेते हैं, या बाहर की किसी कंपनी का गाना डाउनलोड करते हैं, एप्पल म्यूजिक पे जाते हैं, so all these services are being covered there because it is the location of recipient. So wherever all the Indians who are availing these services are liable to be the tax, but because every person cannot be asked to get himself registered, so they have made out a specific provision for this online information, wherein the supplier has to appoint someone in India so that every recipient is not liable to pay tax under reverse charge, and he has to get himself registered. And in case he doesn't have an establishment, he has to appoint someone and he has to discharge the liability. But what is really important is online information database access. Its definition very important. That definition will come in the next slide. I'm sure you would like to read it. This is the definition which I am referring to. It clearly says any services whose delivery is mandatory by information technology over the internet or an electronic network, and the nature of which rendered their supply essentially automated. There is no human intervention, including minimum humanity, and impossible to ensure in the observe. आज जो स्मार्ट टीवी आ गए हैं, क्या उसके बिना आपका क्या ह्यूमन इंटरवेंशन है? आप सिर्फ मोबाइल रिमोट में लेके बैठ जाते हैं. Then that is not the only service in traditional sense. This definition is exhaustive and also inclusive and includes. And again, it is such as illustrative definition like supply, which we have discussed yesterday, advertising on the internet, cloud services, provision of e-book, movie, music, software, other intangibles through telecommunication network, data or information delivered to any person in electronic form through a computer network, online supplies of digital content, movie, music, etc., digital data storage, cloud servicing, and online. यहाँ सब लोकेशन ऑफ द रिसिपिएंट पे बेस्ड है. अगर इंडियन कस्टमर सर्विसेज ले रहा है तो GST will be charged. Of course, the liability has been costed on the supplier through a special section, section 14 of IGST. Now, if you look at these two amendments, one has come from 1st April 2020 when the lockdown, first lockdown was 24th of March. उसके बाद ये अमेंडमेंट आई लॉ. इसमें क्या कहा उन्होंने? जैसे हमने पढ़ा था परफॉर्मेंस बेस्ड एक्सेप्शन थी if the goods are coming to India for repair and then going back without putting to any use, it is the location of the performance is not there, it is the location of the recipient. अगर बाहर वाला आदमी भेज रहा है तो it can still qualify as an export. I tried to explain that in detail. अब अगर आप इसको भी पढ़ेंगे तो आप समझ जाएंगे कि रिपेयर ऑफ एयरक्राफ्ट को, एयरक्राफ्ट के इंजन को, उसके कंपोनेंट के लिए उन्होंने ये कह दिया, दो इट इज अ परफॉर्मेंस बेस्ड सर्विस, प्रिंसिपल इज अगर रिपेयर इंडिया में हुई है तो प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई इंडिया होना चाहिए, पर नहीं, उनको इसको इम्पेटस देना था, इस एक्सपोर्ट, इस सर्विस को एक्सपोर्ट के लिए इंकरेज करना था, उनका लोकेशन ऑफ द रिसिपिएंट. सो इन केस आई एम गेटिंग an aircraft from Nepal or from Dubai or New Zealand, and my company is doing that repair in India, though it is a performance based, still an exception is being called out, a specific section has been created, and the location of the recipient can be qualified as an export of. Similarly, आज कोविड के चक्कर में इतनी R&D हो रही है, रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट है, अक्टूबर 19 में ये अमेंडमेंट आई है 1/10/19 को, तो ये भी परफॉर्मेंस बेस्ड थी। यहाँ उन्होंने कहा नहीं, अगर कोई बाहर का आदमी सर्विस प्रोवाइडर लोकेटेड इन सर्विस प्रोवाइडर लोकेटेड टैक्स सर्विस रिसिपिएंट बाहर का है और रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट के लिए कुछ एक्टिविटी कोविड के रिसर्च के बारे में इंडिया में देता है और बाकी कंडीशन सेटिस्फाई है, तो यहाँ भी लोकेशन ऑफ द रिसिपिएंट माना जाएगा। दैट मीन दो द रिसर्च इज बीन डन इन इंडिया, परफॉर्मेंस बेस्ड है, बट क्योंकि बाहर का आदमी है उसकी लोकेशन को ही हमने प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई मान दिया, सो दैट ऑल रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट रिलेटेड टू फार्मा कैन क्वालिफाई एज एन एक्सपोर्ट। तो ये दो अमेंडमेंट जो अभी आई है 1/10/19 और 1/4/20 क्लियरली मेक्स इट वेरी वेरी क्लियर, आत्मनिर्भर भारत और एक्सपोर्ट को बढ़ावा देना है, उसके लिए उन्होंने ये डाला। Default category is the location of the recipient of service. Then the government has got a power in order to prevent the double taxation or uniform application of rules. They can specify a specific category for a specific service, even though principally it is a destination-based consumption tax. That principle is also being defined. Friends, ये कुछ authorities आई हैं, मैं आपके साथ शेयर कर रहा हूँ, टाइम है नहीं, so I am not dealing with all these authorities. You can just read it. It will make your concept more. Now I am coming to another topic, time of supply. मैं इस पे ज्यादा टाइम नहीं लूंगा क्योंकि मैं समझता हूँ कि क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. There is a strong conviction of mine. If the participant questions are not being answered, the program is not at all successful. Most successful program is one where the queries of the participants are being answered. Now, time of supply. After deciding whether it is interest rate or interest rate, next काम हमारा क्या होता है, हमें टैक्स कब देना है. टैक्स कब देना है वो टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई डिसाइड करता है. जैसे अब कोविड का पीरियड है, रेंटिंग में बाकी सब जगह में बहुत सारी जगह प्रॉब्लम्स आ रही हैं, लोग कह रहे हैं हम इनवॉइस में इशू करेंगे, क्या whether that is the solution. Time of supply clearly says when you have to issue the invoice. If you don't issue the invoice, the liability gets preponed. पहले आपने देख लिया, आप टैक्सेबिलिटी नहीं बचा पाए. Rate of tax is also in the law. Now, what you can say for the client and to the value addition is to postpone the liability. So, in order to ensure that by not issuing the invoices or by following a delayed tactics, you should not postpone the liability. This time of supply of goods has been enacted. It has nothing to do with the taxation. Now, friends, section 12 and 13 है, आप कहेंगे वहां भी 12 and 13 था, वो 12 और 13 IGST एक्ट का था, ये सेक्शन 12 और 13 CGST एक्ट, राइट. अब CGST एक्ट में सेक्शन 12 सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स को डील करता है. 12 एक कहता है, ये सब सेक्शन 1 यही कहता है कि ये जो टैक्स ऑन गुड्स है वो इस सेक्शन के हिसाब से डिसाइडेड होगा. अब अच्छी बात ये है कि मैं आपको सिर्फ 12 to A पढ़वा सकता हूँ, क्योंकि 12 to जो B है उसके प्रोविजन पोस्टपोन कर दिए गए. तो सेव द टाइम, विल गो टू दिस. इट इज द डेट ऑफ इश्यूएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस बाय द सप्लायर, और इश्यूएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस भी आपको सेक्शन 13 के 31 के हिसाब से इशू करना ही पड़ेगा, या द डेट ऑन विच द सप्लायर रिसीव द पेमेंट. अब ये जो बी पार्ट है, ये पहले एडवांस विद रिगार्ड टू द गुड्स भी एप्लीकेबल था, बट बिकॉज ऑफ these two notifications 48.20766 it has been postponed, so I'm not dealing with this. Then it says if the supplier of taxable goods receive an amount up to 1000 rupees in excess of the amount, doesn't matter, इससे भी कुछ ज्यादा फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. मुझे जिस दिन इनवॉइस में इशू करूंगा उसके हिसाब से मेरा टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई डिसाइड होगा. अगर मैंने इनवॉइस अप्रैल में इशू किया तो बाय 20th में आई हैव टू पे द टैक्स, और अगर मैंने इनवॉइस मई में इशू किया तो आई हैव टू पे द टैक्स. अब इनवॉइस कैसे इशू करना है, ऐसा नहीं है मेरी मर्जी है कि मैंने गुड्स मार्च में दे दी और मैं इनवॉइस मई में इशू करूं, ऐसा आप नहीं कर सकते. क्यों नहीं कर सकते? बिकॉज ऑफ सेक्शन 31. नाउ स्टेट, आई विल कम टू दैट टू सेव द टाइम. तो यहाँ कुछ ज्यादा प्लानिंग भी नहीं है, यहाँ सिर्फ इंटरेस्ट पार्ट आप बचा दें. क्या कहता है कि आपको रिमूवल ऑफ गुड्स फॉर सप्लाई टू द रिसिपिएंट वेयर द सप्लाई इन्वॉल्व, जहां मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स होता है जैसे ही आपने गुड्स को अप्रोप्रिएट किया, रिमूव किया अपनी दुकान से, अपने गोडाउन से, दैट इज द टाइम व्हेन यू हैव टू इशू द इनवॉइस। बिफोर तो कर सकते हैं आप, लेकिन उसके बाद नहीं कर सकते। इसी तरह से जब डिलीवरी द गुड्स ओवर द काउंटर है, जैसे ही आपने ओवर द काउंटर गुड्स दी, you have to issue the invoice before that. Before issuing the invoice, you cannot give me delivery over the counter. Before issuing the invoice, you cannot remove the goods. Before removal, you have to issue the invoice. So once that invoice needs to be issued in terms of Section 31 before delivery or before removal of the goods, then obviously I have to raise the invoice. When the invoice has been raised, then in the following month, by 20th, I'm supposed to pay the taxes. So this is really important. Of course, now rest of the section says what are the particulars which are to be described. I am not going to. Now I am dealing with one particular situation with this continuous supply. For example, I have placed an order for 20 ton of cement, which has to be supplied, let us say, 2 metric ton per week. So the supply will go to 10 weeks. So they say where the successive statement of all such payments are involved, why shall be issued before order the next. उससे पहले इनवॉइस के बाद, पहले इनवॉइस के साथ आपको इनवॉइस इशू करना है। जैसे ही आपने पहली सप्लाई उसको दी, तो आपको इनवॉइस इशू करना पड़ेगा, और इनवॉइस इशू करने के हिसाब से नेक्स्ट मंथ में आपको उसकी लायबिलिटी डिस्चार्ज करनी पड़ेगी। सेक्शन 232 क्लॉज 32 ऑफ सेक्शन 2 टॉक अबाउट कंटिन्यूअस सप्लाई गुड कंटिन्यूअस और ऑन रिकरेंट बेसिस। दिस इज अगेन an improvement which has been done over a period of time. Initial section only says continuously. It is being challenged. It is not continuously per week. There is a gap between the two supplies. Then the word recurrent basis also being added. So आपको जैसे वो invoice issue करना in terms of the agreement, you have to start it. In the case of goods, ये कहा गया कि आपने जब supply of goods की on approval basis, अगर वो 6 महीने के अंदर अप्रूव आ जाती है, फॉर एग्जांपल 1 अप्रैल को आपने गुड्स भेजी, 30 सितंबर तक या उससे पहले अगर अप्रूवल आ जाती है, लेट अस से अप्रूवल कम ऑन 15 मई, देन 15 मई यू आर सपोज्ड टू इशू द इनवॉइस। बट अगर मान लीजिए अप्रूवल 30 सितंबर तक नहीं आती, तो 30 सितंबर को आपको इनवॉइस इशू करना ही करना। बियॉन्ड 6 मंथ आप अप्रूवल के लिए सामान नहीं भेज सकते। अगर आपने अप्रूवल पे डिलीवरी चार्ज में माल भेजा है और 1 अप्रैल को भेजा है, तो 30 सितंबर को अगर अप्रूवल होकर नहीं आई, तो 30 सितंबर को इनवॉइस इशू करना। अगर आप इनवॉइस नहीं भी इशू करेंगे, तो टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई विल बी 30 सितंबर। इफ यू इशू द इनवॉइस सब्सिक्वेंट टू दैट डेट, देन यू विल हैव टू पे। दैट्स ऑल। देन कम्स रिवर्स चार्ज सेक्शन 12। यहाँ उन्होंने कहा सो फार एज गुड्स आर कंसर्न्ड वेरी इजी ऑन द रिसीट ऑफ गुड्स और द डेट ऑफ पेमेंट। What is really important is अगर आप पेमेंट कर देते हैं और वो इनवॉइस भी नहीं देता, तो कहता है डेट इमीडिएटली फॉलोइंग 30 days फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ इशू ऑफ इनवॉइस। आपने कुछ चीजें इंपोर्ट कर ली, आपने उसको पेमेंट नहीं की, तो जो डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस है उसके 30 दिन के अंदर आप उसको टैक्स देना है। और ये क्योंकि सेक्शन मेनली अब रिवर्स चार्ज 94 या 54 से रिलेटेड था, अब वो प्रोविजन डेफर कर दिए गए हैं, तो इसकी ज्यादा सिग्निफिकेंस नहीं है। इन द केस ऑफ इंपोर्ट तो अल्टीमेटली आपको कस्टम के हिसाब से टैक्स देना है। जब आप बिल ऑफ एंट्री फाइल करते हैं तभी आपको एजीसी देना होता है। तो ये आरसीएम जो एप्लीकेबल था गुड्स के ऊपर, अभी 5-6 गुड्स हैं, तेंदुलीव एक्सेट्रा या रॉ कॉटन, उनके ऊपर एप्लीकेबल है कि अगर आपने इनवॉइस ले लिया 6 प्रोडक्ट पे, व्हिच इंक्लूड्स रॉ कॉटन, तेंदुलीव एक्सेट्रा, उसमें 30 दिन की इनवॉइस के बाद। मैं इसलिए बार बार इस डेट के ऊपर एम्फसाइज कर रहा हूँ, क्योंकि व्हेन इट कम्स टू सर्विसेज, देन इट इज 60 days नॉट 30 days। सर्विसेज में भी रिवर्स चार्ज में वहां 60 दिन का। अब ये क्वेश्चन ये सब सेक्शन डील करता है वोचर्स में। फॉर एग्जांपल आपको वोचर्स दिए, आपने कहीं मॉल में शॉपिंग की, उन्होंने वोचर दिया, वोचर कैन बी इन कैश। इफ is that voucher, there is one supply and that supply is taxable at a specified rate। तो जिस दिन आपको उन्होंने वोचर दिया, उस वोचर के अगेंस्ट आप सिर्फ शैम्पू खरीद सकते हैं। तो जिस दिन उन्होंने वोचर इशू किया, उसी दिन उनको टैक्स जमा कराना पड़ेगा। बट इफ द वोचर इज ओपन, यू कैन बाय आइदर शैम्पू और यू कैन बाय any any other cosmetics or any other gift item, maybe leather, goods, and they are all taxable under different rate of tax. तो इस सेक्शन में ये कहा गया कि in that case जिस दिन रिडेम्पशन वोचर की होगी उस दिन आपको टैक्स चार्ज, जहाँ पॉसिबल नहीं है वहां उन्होंने कहा जिस दिन रिटर्न फाइल करनी है, जिस दिन टैक्स देना उस दिन आपको देना है। हाँ, ये इम्पोर्टेंट सेक्शन है। सिमिलर प्रोविजंस आर देयर विद रिगार्ड टू सर्विसेज। आई विल नॉट टेक मच टाइम ऑन दैट एंड आई इमीडिएटली ओपन द हाउस फॉर क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन। दिस इज इन रिलेशन टू एडिशन इन द वैल्यू ऑफ सप्लाई पे ऑफ इंटरेस्ट लेट। आपको पता है अब अगर आपने सप्लाई की वैल्यू के अलावा कुछ लेट फी, इंटरेस्ट या पेनल्टी के नाम से भी कुछ अमाउंट चार्ज करिए व्हिच इज नॉट लेट। फॉर एग्जांपल आपके यहाँ क्रेडिट कार्ड के बिल आते हैं, पे बाय दिस एंड दिस डेट, स्पेसिफाइड डेट इज देयर, पे बियॉन्ड दैट डेट अमाउंट इज देयर। सिमिलरली एलआईसी है, टेलीफोन है, सबके अमाउंट है। तो वो जो लेट फी और पेनल्टी है वो उस महीने में टैक्स होगी जिस महीने में वो दे रहा है। लेट अस से मैंने एक माल बेचा 100 रुपए का कस्टमर को, उसने कहा कि आपने 2 महीने के अंदर मुझे पेमेंट करनी है, अगर आप 2 महीने पेमेंट नहीं करोगे तो मैं आपसे 2% एडिशनल लूंगा। अब 2% एडिशनल शुरू हो गया 2 महीने के बाद, लेट अस से 1 अप्रैल को ये ट्रांजेक्शन थी, अप्रैल मई छोड़ दे तो उसने मुझे पेमेंट अगस्त में की, तो जून जुलाई अगस्त 3 महीने का 6% मैंने उससे ले लिया। तो मुझे 6 रुपए मैंने लिए, वो 6 रुपए मुझे अप्रैल में टैक्स नहीं देना है, वो 6 रुपए का मुझे टैक्स देना है इन द मंथ इन व्हिच आई एम रियलाइजिंग। This is really important and noticeable thing. This is absolutely the same, except यहाँ जो इनवॉइस इशू करना है ना, यहाँ वहाँ डिलीवरी से पहले आपको इनवॉइस देना है। सर्विसेज में आपको 30 दिन का टाइम दिया और वहाँ आपको एडवांस अगेंस्ट गुड्स पे टैक्स नहीं जमा कराना था। सर्विसेज के केस में ये भी कहा गया है कि अगर आपको एडवांस मिल गया तो आपको उसी मंथ में उसकी लायबिलिटी डिस्चार्ज करना, हालांकि उसको क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा सामने वाले। अगर आपको याद हो 62 में कंडीशन है, यू मस्ट हैव रिसीव्ड द गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज। जब मैंने सर्विस सप्लाई नहीं की तो उसको मिलेगा ही नहीं क्रेडिट, लेकिन एडवांस पर टैक्स आ जाएगा। बीइंग अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट आप ट्रिब्यूनल में अपीयर होते हैं। उन्होंने ये कहा कि आप मिस्टर बत्रा यू हैव टू अपीयर इन ट्रिब्यूनल इन मुंबई फॉर व्हिच द हियरिंग हैज कम ऑन 5th of June। आई सेड नथिंग डूइंग, आप मुझे पैसे जमा करा दो, मैं डेट तभी ब्लॉक करूंगा। उन्होंने मुझे 5 लाख रुपए अप्रैल में दे दिए, तो मुझे 5 लाख रुपए अप्रैल के 20 मई तक टैक्स जमा कराना है। भले ही मैंने सर्विस जून में देनी है, उसकी डेट जून में आई है, जून में जाऊंगा, कोर्ट लगेगा नहीं लगेगा उस बात की बात है, मेरी इफेक्टिव हियरिंग होगी नहीं होगी उसकी क्या बिलिंग है। अगर मैंने 5 लाख रुपए फीस ले ली एडवांस पे, मुझे वहां टैक्स देना है। और अगर मैं इनवॉइस विद इन 30 डेज नहीं करता हूँ तो जिस दिन मेरी प्रोविजन ऑफ सर्विस है उस दिन मेरी लायबिलिटी आ जाएगी। फॉर एग्जाम्पल मैंने टैक्स ऑडिट किया, मैंने 26 सितंबर को उसकी बैलेंस शीट साइन कर दी। अब 26 सितंबर को मैंने साइन कर दी, सो आई हैव प्रोवाइडेड द सर्विस। इफ आई डोंट इश्यू द इनवॉइस बाय जनवरी, आई कैन नॉट पोस्टपोन द लायबिलिटी बाय द मंथ ऑफ जनवरी। इफ आई इश्यू द इनवॉइस, लेट अस से मैंने बैलेंस शीट साइन की 28 सितंबर को, मैंने 15 अक्टूबर को इनवॉइस इशू कर दिया विद इन 30 डेज, तो आई कैन डिस्चार्ज द लायबिलिटी बाय 20th नवंबर। बट अगर मैंने इनवॉइस इशू ही नहीं किया विद इन 30 डेज और 28 सितंबर को सर्विस दी, मैंने इनवॉइस इशू किया जनवरी में, तो उसमें मेरी लायबिलिटी बन जाएगी अक्टूबर की, क्योंकि परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ सर्विस हैज बीन डन इन मंथ ऑफ सितंबर, 28 सितंबर। मुझे 30 दिन का टाइम भी नहीं मिलेगा और मुझे बिल रेज करना पड़ेगा अक्टूबर में, मुझे टैक्स डिस्चार्ज करना पड़ेगा अक्टूबर में। और अगर मैंने जनवरी में बिल रेज किया तो मुझे, और पेमेंट मैंने फरवरी में किया, तो अक्टूबर से लेकर फरवरी तक का मुझे इंटरेस्ट भी बारिंग दिस देयर इज नो मच डिफरेंसेस। जैसे मैंने कहा अगर 1000 रुपया मुझे फालतू आ जाता तो उन्होंने कहा उस पर कैश बेसिस पे नहीं दे, उस पर आप बिल के टाइम पे भी दे सकते हैं। दिस इज नॉर्मली डन बिकॉज टेलीफोन का बिल आया 690 रुपए, आप 700 रुपये जमा करा देते हैं, उस अगर 10 रुपए को भी एडवांस मान के मुझे टैक्स जमा कराना पड़ेगा तो मेरा सिस्टम बहुत बर्डन होगा। तो उन्होंने कहा अगर ये अमाउंट 1000 रुपए तक है, जैसे ही आप अगले महीने का बिल जमा कराएंगे आप उसके साथ भी ये टैक्स लायबिलिटी डिस्चार्ज कर सकते हैं। विद दिस I think I did not read further provisions so that we can have some question answers. I am just concluding my discussion here, asking the moderators to take the charge.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Question answer session. I invite Vijay Gupta ji. विजय गुप्ता सर, आप क्वेश्चन आंसर सिर्फ क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन से ही लें, जो चैट वाले क्वेश्चन काइंडली छोड़ दें, क्योंकि सिर्फ हम क्वेश्चन आंसर वाले ही अटेंड करेंगे, और जो रिपीटेड होंगे वो भी छोड़ दें, और जो जनरल क्वेश्चन है वो ऑलरेडी रिप्लाइड है मैक्सिमम, रिलेटेड टू टेक्नोलॉजी और कोर्स सर्टिफिकेट से। विजय गुप्ता जी,
अटेंड नहीं किया, वो क्या करें? तो मेरा उनसे रिक्वेस्ट है कि वो यूट्यूब पे जाएं और कल का सेशन देखें, अगर वो रजिस्टर्ड है तो। अगर उन्हें
नहीं उसका सर छोड़ दें, सर जनरल चीजें छोड़ दें, काइंडली आप सिर्फ क्वेश्चन आंसर लें सर, जो आज के रिलेटेड टॉपिक हैं।
ठीक है सर, मैं वही ले रहा हूँ। ठीक है, राइट, थैंक यू।
I am registered in UP and I have sold some goods to customer registered in UP for further export of goods. In that case, I charge CGST and SGST or IGST.
दोबारा बोलना।
I am registered in UP.
Okay.
And I have sold some goods to customer registered in UP for further export of goods.
I got it. अश्विनी जी, क्योंकि प्लेस ऑफ सप्लायर यूपी में है और पहला मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स टर्मिनेट हो गया यूपी के अंदर, सेकंड सप्लाई का बिल उसने बनाना है, so I am not concerned with his supply, so I am concerned with my supply. It gets completed the moment the delivery has been given to that UP person. So because the supplier and place of supply both are in UP, it will be intrastate supply on the CGST and SGST. CGST.
प्लीज एक्सप्लेन रिवर्स चार्ज बेसिस। रिवर्स चार्ज बेसिस में था आज का हमारा टॉपिक।
हाँ था, रिवर्स चार्ज बेसिस पे जो सप्लाई है, मान लीजिए गुड्स और सर्विसेज दोनों पे रिवर्स चार्ज। अब रिवर्स चार्ज में एक एडवोकेट साहब ने आपको बिल दिया, तो जो एडवोकेट साहब ने बिल दिया, जिस दिन आपने पेमेंट की है उस दिन आपको उसका टैक्स डिस्चार्ज करना है। बट अगर 60 दिन तक आप उसकी डिस्चार्ज नहीं करते पेमेंट को, तो 61वें दिन आपकी लायबिलिटी बन जाती है वो टैक्स देने। और अगर आप टैक्स नहीं डिस्चार्ज करते हैं 61वें दिन, तो जितनी लेट आप करेंगे उन दिन का इंटरेस्ट देना पड़ेगा। सेम प्रोविजन अप्लाइज टू गुड्स ऑल्सो। गुड्स में 7 चीजें हैं, जैसे मैंने बताया, रॉ कॉटन है, तेंदुलीव है, बाकी चीजें हैं। जो चीजें रिवर्स चार्ज के अंदर है, उस दिन अगर आपका बिल आया, जिस दिन आप पेमेंट करेंगे उस दिन से आपको लायबिलिटी डिस्चार्ज करनी है। बट इन केस यू डोंट मेक द पेमेंट फॉर 30 days, फ्रॉम 31st day the liability automatically becomes due. If you don't make payment on the 31st day, then you will have to pay interest from 31st day till the date of payment.
विजय जी, आप भी पढ़ते रहो, क्वेश्चन टाइम ना कम लगे, जो आपको लग रहा है रेलेवेंट।
एजेंट, आई एम एक्सपोर्टिंग गुड्स टू एन एजेंट, बार-बार ऊपर नीचे हो जाता है। And the invoice I have issued in the name of agent, is it export in my hands?
Certainly not. Export means taking goods out of India. Export benefit के लिए हमारे पास बहुत सारे प्रोसीजर हैं, जहां डायरेक्ट एक्सपोर्टर भी ले सकता है या डीम्ड एक्सपोर्टर को भी वो डिस्क्लेमर दे सकता है। That is besides the issue. So long as GST supply is concerned, once I am raising an invoice to an exporter, my supply is to the exporter and I have to discharge the liability of that.
What would be the place of supply in case of the event, particularly organizing a cricket match?
देखिए, मैंने सेक्शन 12 में भी कहा था, 13 में कहा था, प्रिंसिपल सेम है। जहां इवेंट ऑर्गेनाइज होती है, दैट इज द प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई। बट अगर मैं किसी रजिस्टर्ड पर्सन के लिए कर रहा हूं, तो फिर उसका रजिस्ट्रेशन पर्सन का प्लेस माना जाएगा इफ इट इज इन रिलेशन टू ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। फॉर एग्जांपल, बीसीसीआई मुंबई has told me to organize a match in Faridabad. I am in Delhi, so I am organizing a match, and because both supplier and recipient are in India, Section 12 shall apply. So as per Section 12, because the service in relation to organization of the event and the place of supply is the place of registration of that person, and that person is registered where? In Mumbai, so I will charge IGST.
What will be the place of supply in case of X go down or X factory delivery?
सर, एक्स गोडाउन और एक्स फैक्ट्री का कोई लॉ नहीं है। अगर हमारे जीएसटी लॉ में अब एक्स गोडाउन एक्स फैक्ट्री का इशू नहीं है। इफ द गुड्स इन्वॉल्व मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स, अगर मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स है तो जहां डिलीवरी टर्मिनेट हो, For example, my godown is in Haryana and my factory is in मध्य प्रदेश। तो अगर वो मेरे पास आया मध्य प्रदेश में, उसने कहा जी ये माल आप मुझे यहाँ से मुझे दिल्ली में भिजवा दो, तो चाहे मैं वो माल अपने गोडाउन से उठाऊं या फैक्ट्री से उठाऊं, बिकॉज इट इन्वॉल्व्स मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स एंड द मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स टर्मिनेटेड इन दिल्ली, द प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई विल बी दिल्ली। आई एम ए सप्लायर in Madhya Pradesh, so I will charge IGST. But अगर
what will happen when the buyer himself take the delivery from my factory?
sir, if he takes the delivery and movement of goods, you don't know about it. If it is a commercial quantity and he is giving you his GST number and asking you if this material I have to sold it from my shop in Delhi, then certainly it will be IGST. But अगर commercial quantities नहीं है और उसने over the counter delivery ले ली है, तो place of supply वही माना जाएगा। मैंने एग्जांपल दिया था आपको कि बॉम्बे में अगर मैं घूम रहा हूँ, तो मैं मान लीजिए रेडीमेड गारमेंट का एक ट्रेडर हूँ, मुझे 2 कपड़े पसंद आ गए, मैंने ले लिए, पर मैंने व्यापारी को नहीं बताया और मैंने ट्रेडर को नहीं बताया कि मैंने मूवमेंट करनी है, तो फिर वो महाराष्ट्र का टैक्स लगाएगा। बट इफ आई टेल हिम कि आई एम ए ट्रेडर इन दिल्ली, दिस इज माय जीएसटी नंबर एंड आई विल कैरी दिस गुड्स टू दिल्ली फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ रीसेल, देन ही विल चार्ज मी आईजीएसटी।
सर एक क्वेश्चन है, एक सिविल कॉन्ट्रैक्टर
सप्लाई बाय एसईजेड इन इंडिया टू अनदर एसईजेड इन इंडिया, व्हाट विल द प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई?
सर इंडिया तो बहुत बड़ी बात है, स्टेट की बात करें ना, हाँ तो इंडिया में तो फिर इंडिया टैक्स लगना ही है। अगर एसईजेड गुजरात का है और गुजरात में सप्लाई कर रहा है तो भी आईजीएसटी, और गुजरात के बाहर कर रहा है तो भी आईजीएसटी। सो ऑल सप्लाई मेड बाय एसईजेड will be IGST supply only.
What will be the place of supply in case of e-commerce supply? E-commerce supply of goods as well as services.
Vijay ji, e-commerce में there are number of models. So we have to look at the model. For example, Amazon की अगर बात करते हैं तो कई बार अगर आप माल मंगवाते हैं तो वो सप्लायर का बिल आता है, Amazon सिर्फ हमें कमीशन लेता है। तो अगर सप्लायर का बिल आया, सप्लायर दिल्ली का है और बायर भी दिल्ली का है, खारी बावली से पश्चिम बिहार में माल आया तो सीजीएसटी लगाएगा। बट अगर सप्लायर बॉम्बे का है और बॉम्बे से कोई ड्राई फ्रूट आ रहा है मेरे लिए दिल्ली में, तो विल चार्ज मी आईजीएसटी बिकॉज द लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लायर। और मूवमेंट तो टर्मिनेट हो रहा है जहाँ डिलीवरी जा रही है, चाहे वो सर्विस हो चाहे गुड्स हो, प्रिंसिपल सेम। अब अमेजन का अपना है, मान लीजिए किंडल इज अ प्रोडक्ट ऑफ अमेजन इटसेल्फ। अब उन्हें किंडल बेचना है तो अमेजन का लोकेशन है आउटसाइड इंडिया, अब उसके गोडाउन्स भी है दिल्ली में उसने नंबर, इंडिया में उसने नंबर भी ले रखे हैं। अगर उसने अमेजन ने सप्लाई की दिल्ली डिपो से और दिल्ली डिपो से ही बिलिंग की और मैं भी दिल्ली में हूँ तो सीजीएसटी आईजीएसटी लगाएगा। बट अगर उसने डिपो लिया फरीदाबाद का और सप्लायर दिल्ली में है, क्योंकि लोकेशन ऑफ सप्लायर हरियाणा में हो गई एंड मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स टर्मिनेट दिल्ली में हो रहा, तो फिर वो आईजीएसटी।
Supply of goods on the oil rig in the ocean. Supply of goods on the oil rig in the ocean.
मैंने जब अपना डिस्कशन शुरू किया था, मैंने पहले कहा था अगर सप्लायर और रेसिपिएंट दोनों इंडिया से बाहर है तो वो ट्रांजैक्शन सब्जेक्ट टू जीएसटी नहीं। नाउ इफ वी टॉक अबाउट दिस टेरिटोरियल वाटर व्हिच इज 12 नॉटिकल माइल्स, तो मैंने कहा था कोस्टल स्टेट में जहां सप्लायर है उस स्टेट की लोकेशन मानी जाएगी अकॉर्डिंगली इट विल बी। अगर मान लीजिए दिल्ली वाला आदमी टेरिटोरियल वाटर में माल सप्लाई कर रहा है तो टेरिटोरियल वाटर में ड्रिलिंग के लिए कुछ दे रहा है, सर्टेनली इट हैज टू बी आईजीएसटी ओनली।
Sir, if a buyer buys the goods in Delhi and it is a counter sale, delivery is taken at a time of sale, the supplier will charge CGST and SGST. The goods are taken to Punjab for sale. Will he get credit of the taxes paid?
नहीं मिलेगा ना, यही बात तो मैं 3 बार डिस्कस कर चुका हूँ सर। मैंने आपको बॉम्बे का एग्जांपल 3 बार दिया, मैं दोबारा रिपीट।
सर रिपीटेड क्वेश्चन छोड़ दो विजय जी।
The construction, can we call it assembly and we treat the POS as location of construction site?
अरे सर वहाँ असेंबली का क्वेश्चन ही नहीं है, कंस्ट्रक्शन सर्विसेज बॉक्स कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में आती है जो सेक्शन 2 सब क्लॉज 119 में डिफाइन किया गया, रेड विद शेड्यूल 2, इट इज ए सर्विस। तो यहाँ सर्विस के रूल लगेंगे, असेंबलिंग वाला रूल नहीं लगेगा, ये गुड्स नहीं है।
What would be the place of supply in case of cruise ship for different duration? Do they need to apply for casual restriction?
सर जहाँ से आप सप्लाई करते हैं वो एम्बार्किंग वाला प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई है। अगर क्रूज वाली कंपनी बॉम्बे से क्रूज कैरी करती है, then they have to seek registration from Bombay also.
Most of the queries have been settled. Ashwani ji, we have concluded most of the queries.
नहीं सर, इसमें ये एक हो गया, सिविल कॉन्ट्रैक्टर रजिस्टर्ड इन दिल्ली बट ही प्रोवाइड सर्विसेज इन हरियाणा एज सिविल कॉन्ट्रैक्टर एंड परचेज रिक्वायर्ड मटेरियल इन हरियाणा, फर्दर इशू इनवॉइस विद IGST, बट ही इज करेक्ट और नॉट?
He is certainly correct whenever he is issuing his invoice to his client, because works contract has been defined as a service. So location of the supplier is in Delhi. Place of supply is the location where the property is intended to be located. That is in Haryana. So far as he is concerned, he is charging correct IGST. There is no doubt about that. Once he is buying goods from Haryana, here comes the problem. Because the supplier is delivering the goods in Haryana, it is goods. He will charge CGST, SGST of Haryana. How will you claim the credit thereof? So you have to be smart enough. You have to place an order from Delhi, ask him to supply the goods in Haryana. Then location of supplier is there and place of supply is also in Haryana. Then there is a problem. As I told you, in that case you will lose that credit. मैंने अपने डेलिब्रेशन में भी कहा था कि अगर प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई का ध्यान नहीं रखेंगे और अगर CGST या SGST उस स्टेट का लग जाएगा जहां आप रजिस्टर्ड नहीं है, तो वो आपका क्रेडिट का लॉस हो जाएगा, which you need to be very very careful. But your question is whether you are charging tax correctly. There is no doubt you are charging tax correctly.
विजय जी,
Yes sir. In case the supplier outside India supplies services to recipient outside India based on outsourcing of services by an Indian service provider, what will be the taxability of such a transaction?
सर वहाँ दो सप्लाई है, एक जो फॉरेन का सप्लायर है जिसने सर्विस सप्लाई की, जो मेरे क्लाइंट को, जो मेरा क्लाइंट भी बाहर है, तो उसके ऊपर तो मैं कोई इनवॉइस नहीं है, सर्विस पे तो वो टैक्स लगाएगा नहीं. But yes, if I am availing the service which is my expenditure, I am making payment to that foreign supplier. For me, if it is a taxable service and if the place of supply is in India, then I have to pay tax and the reverse charge. और जब मैं बिल करूंगा अपने फॉरेन क्लाइंट को, तो डिपेंड करता है, अगर प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई मेरी बाहर होती है और मुझे पेमेंट कंट्रोल फॉरेन एक्सचेंज में आती है, तो ये एक्सपोर्ट क्वालिफाई हो सकती है. So this is all based on the assumptions. I have taken certain assumptions. You have to look at the facts properly. What are the nature of service? Accordingly, you have to take a call. But this is the broader principle. There are two supplies involved. One supply by a foreign supplier to the Indian person, and second supply by the Indian person to his customer. Now, the supply made by the foreign supplier to the foreign customer of the Indian supplier, obviously, if the place of supply is outside, then I'm liable. If the place of supply is in India, then as an importer, I'm liable to pay on reverse charge. And whether my supply will qualify as an export, again, depend on the place of supply.
विजय जी,
Yes sir.
सभी जितने पार्टिसिपेंट से रिक्वेस्ट है कि अगर किसी का क्वेश्चन छूट गया क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन में रिसेंटली अभी डाल दें, तो सर आप बिल्कुल एंड में चले जाएं क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन के, जो भी रिसेंट क्वेरीज क्वेश्चन आ रहे हैं उनको टेकअप कर लें. अटेंडीज से रिक्वेस्ट है कि अगर किसी का कोई क्वेश्चन रह गया तो वो दोबारा उसको पोस्ट कर दे क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन में. एक ये आया हुआ विजय, ये हो गया, पर्सन इज रेजिडेंट इन इंडिया हैविंग प्रोप्राइटरी.
Person is resident in India having proprietorship and stays half a year in Germany. He will be getting commission international sourcing fee in India for
विजय जी.
सर आप ये बार बार हिल रहा है सर, थोड़ा सा टाइम लगेगा.
एक और आया है, इन केस ऑफ ट्यूशन सर्विसेज टू यूएसए फ्रॉम इंडिया, whether this is export of services or intermediary services, if the partnership firm supply this service is arranging faculty and finding student from USA online.
देखिए इस क्वेश्चन में 4 क्वेश्चन उन्होंने कर दिए. देखिए जहां तक क्वेश्चन है कमर्शियल ट्रेनिंग एंड कोचिंग का, जैसे मैंने कहा वो ऑनलाइन दे रहे हैं, तो ऑनलाइन इंफॉर्मेशन डाटाबेस रिसिपिएंट बेस पे डिसाइड होगा. if I am an intermediary where I am finding student for the foreign university, तो ये आएगा सेक्शन 13 में इंटरमीडिएट की सर्विस में, एंड इट कैन नेवर बी एक्सपोर्ट, इट विल ऑलवेज बी टैक्सेबल.
My query is a person is resident in India having proprietorship and stays most of the time in the Germany and is getting commission or the outsourcing fees. What will be the place of supply in that case?
देखिए सर, अगर आउटसोर्सिंग फी मिल रही है सिर्फ फैसिलिटेट करने के लिए, सप्लाई के लिए, वो जर्मन में रहे या कहीं रहे, because the supply has been made by the proprietorship firm who is registered in India, and this being the intermediary services, the place of supply will be India, the transaction will be subject to tax.
Whenever we buy commodity and get the invoice address something different than the original address, what will be the place of supply?
प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई में एड्रेस का कोई मतलब नहीं है. मैं आपको बहुत बार एग्जांपल देता हूँ. एक आदमी जापान से आया, वो होटल में रुका, उसने अपना बैग खोला तो उसमें कैमरा नहीं है. He went to that showroom in the hotel itself और उन्होंने सोनी का एक कैमरा लिया. उसने कहा भैया ये कैमरा मुझे दे दो, पर मेरा एड्रेस आप टोक्यो का, क्योंकि इसकी इंटरनेशनल वारंटी है, अगर कुछ प्रोडक्ट में प्रॉब्लम होगी तो मैं टोक्यो में यूज करूंगा. It doesn't matter if I am writing the address on Tokyo also, it will be a local supply over the counter. मैंने डिलीवरी दी है, GST GST लगेगा, भले ही उसमें एड्रेस टोक्यो का हो, and it can never be export. क्योंकि जब मैं एक्सपोर्ट पढ़ रहा था तो मैं आपको बता रहा था कि एक्सपोर्ट means taking goods from a place in India to outside India. That condition is not being satisfied, so it will be a local supply where CGST SGST shall be charged.
An Indian subsidiary company reside a machine from holding company at FOC. After some time, the subsidiary company transferred that machine to another Indian subsidiary as any subsidiary company at FOC. The GST is applicable.
देखिए सर, मुझे टैक्स पूरे समझ में नहीं आया, कुछ आवाज आपकी क्रैक भी कर रही थी, पर जहां तक मैं समझ पा रहा हूँ वो ये कह रहे हैं कि इंडियन कंपनी, फॉरेन की कंपनी ने एक प्रोडक्ट यहाँ खरीदा सब्सिडी कंपनी में, और सब्सिडी कंपनी ने उसको पीरियड के बाद बेच दिया. Certainly,
इसमें क्या है, इंडियन कंपनी ने फॉरेन कंपनी से मशीन एक एफओसी पे से आई सर, रिलेटेड पार्टी ट्रांजैक्शन हुई सर यहाँ पर, और
उससे फिर क्या हुआ?
An Indian subsidiary company received a machine from a holding company as a FOC.
Okay.
And after some time, that subsidiary company transferred that machine to another Indian subsidiary of the company, of the holding company at FOC. Whether GST is applicable?
देखिए, होल्डिंग कंपनी, सब्सिडियरी कंपनी, दोनों रिलेटेड पार्टी लोग हैं. सप्लाई विदाउट कंसिडरेशन इज आल्सो सब्जेक्ट टू टैक्स. हाउ आई हैव procured that machine, how I have procured that machinery is simply irrelevant. Once I am making a supply to a related party, even though it is without consideration, certainly subject to GST. Certainly subject to GST.
Issue a certificate to the company whose project office is in Tamil Nadu and GST registration in Tamil Nadu, and the certificate is to be given at Delhi corporate office for the purpose of bank loan or for project office, whether it's IGST supply or local supply.
I couldn't understand. What is the query? धीरे बोले थोड़ा विजय जी.
It is in to issue a PSLC to the company whose project office is in Tamil Nadu and GST registration in Tamil Nadu.
PSLC का बड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड सा इशू है, इसके लिए बोर्ड का एक सर्कुलर आया हुआ है, उसको सामने रख के बैठे और डिसाइड करें. I cannot answer it on the counter itself.
Okay. Does a travel agent getting income on commission basis need to get registered?
Yes, if it exceeds the taxable quantum. अगर सर्विस में 20 लाख से नीचे है तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, 20 लाख से ऊपर कमीशन आते हैं तो रजिस्टर कराना पड़ेगा.
In case of import of services, in case of import of services, what is the time limit to pay the supplier of services to avail the input of GST paid on RCM?
RCM का क्रेडिट मिलता ही पेमेंट के बाद है, इसमें तो 180 दिन वाला इशू ही नहीं है, और पेमेंट आपको करनी पड़ेगी फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस. 60 डेज जब लैप्स हो जाते हैं उसके बाद आपको पेमेंट करनी पड़ेगी, और इमीडिएटली आफ्टर पेमेंट यू कैन क्लेम द क्रेडिट. Unless otherwise you don't make payment of GST and the reverse charge, you are not eligible for the credit. The eligibility will come only after making payment of GST under RC.
I think most of the queries have been answered. If it has left query, please post to all the queries to Batra sir and we'll get the reply. Now I request Ashwani ji to give a formal vote of thanks.
विजय जी वो आपकी ड्यूटी है आज.
Okay, sir. Okay. I, on the behalf of Voice of CA and all the participants, and particularly on behalf of the Shivaji colleague, also give a formal vote of thanks to our London speaker, Ashok Batra ji, who has given a wonderful deliberation subject and give all the answers to all the queries raised by the participants wonderfully. I am very thankful to Ashok Batra sir for giving such a wonderful deliberation. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. I request control room to kindly close the meeting, end the meeting.